Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. We're here today to talk about the DC Comics for the week of December 14th, 2021. Quick reminder, 12 Days of the Comic Source coming up real fast. If you missed us on social media, we're going to be doing the first 12 issues of Spawn. We're going to have our usual creator interviews where they come on and talk about what the year that was and what stuff they have coming up and just talk about comics in general. So we'll probably have some giveaways as well, so be sure you tune in. You're following us on social media for all that kind of good stuff. And I should also mention, so there is a DC holiday special coming out this week, but we're not actually going to talk about it on this episode because we're going to do a spotlight all on its own, so we can cover all the stories in there in depth. So that's "'Tis the Season to Be Freezin'" that has Harley Quinn on the cover. So look for a spotlight on that coming later this week, maybe early next week. But the other big news in DC is the solicits dropped, and we know what the next big event is that's coming up in March. You want to let everybody know what it is, Rocky?
Yes, it's the War for Earth 3. Amanda Waller, as we know, those of us who've been reading the pages of Teen Titans Academy, Suicide Squad in particular, and some hints at in The Flash, those three titles, they're going to be Amanda Waller is going to be making her move to solidify her power by trying to take control over Earth 3. We saw hints of that in Future State, and apparently it is now a big event. It'll be taking place in February and ending at the end of March of 2022. So I'm looking forward to it. I know a lot of people are complaining. We're also getting a Batman Shadow War coming out around the same time, but I'm looking forward to it. I kind of like an event that isn't always Batman, so I'm looking forward to it. I love Earth 3. I've been enjoying Suicide Squad, Flash, less so Teen Titans Academy, but between Flash and Suicide Squad and your favorite character, Jace, Amanda Waller, I'm looking forward to it. What about you?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, like Marvel's done this for a lot of years where they go from event to event to event, and oftentimes they're line-wide events. I mean, this is an event the same way Future State was or Fear State was an event, right? Like that was just the Batman books, which is a whole hell of a lot more than what we have here. Like we said, Teen Titans Academy, Flash, Suicide Squad. It's only 3 books,
Yeah.
so it's not like that big of a deal. If you want to ignore it, you can. It makes sense with what we saw in Future State, more sense than a lot of the other continuity that's going on this week. I just
Yeah.
scratch my head at. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. I did see a headline of an article in the last couple of days that said basically Fear State shows that Future State was a gimmick, because the magistrate is defeated. And I'm scratching my head going, yeah, I mean, what did you think? Did you think that they were putting out all these series of 2-issue volumes that you thought it was going to matter in the end? Everything's a possible future, right? Like they're never going to nail down anything in continuity when it's a jump forward. Like just get used to that. So that's not. I think it was from like comicbook.com or something. It's like this is not news that it's a gimmick. So
Yeah.
anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the books for this week. We finally have a credits page for Batman the Imposter. We're on the final issue here. This is a Black Label book. It's written by Mattson Tomlin, who's also the writer that wrote the screenplay for the upcoming Robert Pattinson Batman movie. So it makes sense why when you look at the Batman that's in this book, like we've seen the first 2 issues, as illustrated by Andrea Sorrentino, it certainly looks like Robert Pattinson when he doesn't have the cowl on, right? So that's the writer, that's the artist. The colors are by Jordi Belair. The letters, who we haven't known all this time, the other 3 that I mentioned, Tomlin, Sorrentino, Belair, they're on the cover credits, so at least we've been able to talk about what a great job they've done. Steve Wands is a letterer, so finally we get to give Steve Wands some credit because the lettering in this is done really, really well also. Overall, it was enjoyable. I wonder how much of this storyline we might actually see in the movie. It was kind of interesting to have a love interest for Bruce Wayne that wasn't some socialite or beautiful crusading reporter, a la Vicky Vale, to have his love interest be kind of a street level character, a cop, a detective for the Gotham City Police Department that isn't she's Asian, she has dark hair, she's I wouldn't say butch, but she's not glamorous or anything. She's a cop. She's doing her job, and so,
Yeah.
um, it's not her beauty isn't. This isn't somebody that Bruce would have on his arm and walk into some gala or something like that. So that was I really like that aspect of the story. As far as who was behind it all along, kind of cliche. It didn't really have much impact. I think, unfortunately, the third issue here is the weakest of the three. A little bit forgettable on how it all plays out. I sort of feel like it's not that the ending didn't live up to what the promise of what came before, because again, it makes sense everything that happens, but it just felt a little anticlimactic. I mean, this imposter Batman had been built up to be somebody like important, like he goes up against Bruce, and they're almost a match for each other here. And Bruce Wayne, who's traveled around the world and trained, and granted, he's at the beginning of his career, he's not as formidable as you would expect him to be later, but he has a tough time. And then come to find out, it's just another cop, that was tired of people that Batman had arrested going free because of legal technicalities and whatnot, and being captured by vigilante and everything. And it's I get it, like cops are trained, but I mean not to the level of Bruce Wayne. So I don't know. It felt a little anticlimactic to me. I liked the tone of the story. Thought the art was fantastic. But more than anything, kind of the tone, the gritty feel of it is where it really succeeds for all three issues. But in terms of the narrative, I just kind of felt like this third issue was the weakest of the three, unfortunately. So your mileage may vary, and I imagine if you're a huge fan of the style and the tone of the upcoming Batman movie, that you'll probably like this, because again, it's written by the same guy. Screenplay for the movie and this Black Label book have the same writer. So, what did you think, Rocky?
Well, I like this. I agree. It's probably a little weaker. I think the second issue is probably the strongest of the three. I like the second issue because it focused on the budding relationship and the developing relationship between Detective Wong and Bruce Wayne. And ultimately, in this issue, Detective Wong discovers that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and of course, she thinks Batman is the one that's there's an imposter going around, but Detective Wong is not sure exactly if there is an imposter, that maybe Batman is the bad guy going around pretending to be Batman really is Batman, and Batman is bad. I mean, no one really knows. That's part of the central mystery. And what I like what Mattson Tomlin has done here is that he's created Batman's own mythology in a way that the people of Gotham, even at the end of this third issue, and this ends the series, there's still an open question. Was it an imposter? Is Batman, it's really built up this legend of Batman. And, I also like how this other cop, this corrupt cop, was actually this imposter Batman. And the only reason he was able to get away with making people believe that he was Batman was because, well, not only is he very well trained, similar to how Bruce Wayne is, but there's this sort of street bum, this Otis Flanagan, who is very familiar with the underworld, is very familiar with the tunnels underneath Gotham City. This corrupt cop was using this Otis Flanagan in order to basically get around Gotham as much as he did. And so it was very easy. It's very easy to see how this imposter Batman was getting around Gotham as quickly as, of course, Bruce Wayne as Batman did. And you can see how this level of corruption, you could see how it played out. And it was very convincing. Meanwhile, I love the take on Leslie Tompkins. I love the fact that she thinks of Bruce Wayne. Her attitude is, Bruce Wayne, you could fix Gotham if you're Bruce Wayne. You could fix Gotham if you let yourself fix Gotham. She considers Batman an affliction on Bruce Wayne, like Batman is some kind of curse preventing Bruce Wayne from being the true cure for Gotham. And of course, Bruce Wayne has all this rage, and the only person that helped him deal with that rage was Detective Wong. And ultimately, their relationship comes to fruition at the end of this. but very well done. I also like at the end here, there's a hint at the ventriloquist. We were introduced to Wesker Industries in the first and second issue, and of course Wesker being part of the ventriloquist lore, and the son of Wesker becomes the ventriloquist. But Batman ends up sending this young would-be ventriloquist villain to Leslie Tompkins for therapy at the end of the issue. So it's sort of a hint of a future villain to come. I thought it was very well done. I could definitely feel sort of a cinematic taste to this. It's very easy to imagine Robert Pattinson in this role in the Batman in this particular story. Having said this, when I read this, am I looking forward more to the Batman movie? Do I think this Batman movie is going to be different than what we've gotten before in Batman movies? The answer is a definite yes. Will I like it more than Ben Affleck Batman? I'm not sure. I love Ben Affleck Batman. I don't think I'll like it better, but it definitely has its own unique flair. This is Mattson Tomlin's Batman. Definitely is its own unique take, and it's dare I say, this is a much more human and vulnerable and almost dark and depressing Batman. Perhaps it's been criticized ahead of time as being an emo Batman. I hope that's not the case, but anyways, I didn't mind this, and it'll be interesting to see how the movie plays out, because Mattson Tomlin did write the screenplay for the upcoming Batman movie. So we'll see how it works out. But this is not a bad series, and those who are interested in the Batman movie, you might want to check out Batman the Imposter to get a taste of what we can expect in the Batman the movie when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the relationship between Batman and Leslie Tompkins, because it's really sort of in the background. It starts out as a very in your face when you're reading it in the first issue, and then throughout it sort of serves as the backbone of the series. I really like their relationship. It's a little bit of a different dynamic than the classic Leslie Tompkins in the comics, and the fact that she's a person of color and a very strong character in this series. I definitely enjoyed that. All right, up next, this one. Yeah, we had some. Rocky and I were even talking about this book over the weekend, so just to warn everybody. Yeah, so it's Black Manta number 4. It's written by Chuck Brown. Matthew Dow Smith is the artist. Marisa Louise does the colors. Clayton Cowell on letters. This is part 4 of 5, I believe. Part 4 of 6. And it says right there on the front cover, Prelude to Aquaman. So we have the big Aquaman series coming up from Brandon Thomas next year, and this is supposed to get people excited for it, I guess. So, what did you think, Rocky?
Well, as I want to be clear on one thing here. I do think that Chuck Brown, if to give him the best compliment that I can, I do think that he's got an interesting story in his mind. Unfortunately, I don't think it's being executed very well in terms of pacing and the way that he's putting it out on the page. And I don't think that he's not getting a lot of help from the artist, in this case, Matthew Dow Smith. The art here is I think it's surprisingly, I want to be diplomatic, but this isn't up to task. I'm very surprised by this. Even the coloring is off to me. I find the art here to be very by the numbers, literally by the numbers. It's like there's almost numbers in the various spots, and then the colorist comes along, and for some reason, even the sky is orange. The sky is orange. The sea isn't. This ocean isn't really blue. There's no nuance in the coloring. This character named Torrid, who is who's imbued with this, who has this necklace of oracalum is the metal that's around her neck. She was the one that came out of Doom's doorway on Themyscira, and her name is Torrid. They finally gave her a name in this issue, because I criticized Chuck Brown before because a lot of the characters it took a while for us to know that Devil's Ray is the arch nemesis here. We finally got a name for this woman in white hair who came out of Doom's doorway. They gave her a name, Torrid. A lot. There is a plot to be had in this story, but it's very frustrating to try to get to the heart of this here. I'm not sure what Torrid's powers are. I'm not sure she's Torrid even has a creature with her that uses spontaneous evolutionary jumps as a defense mechanism. Apparently, I'm not really sure why that's relevant. Apparently, 110,000 years ago, um, when Black Manta and Gallus and his partner Gallus traveled into the past with the help of the Gentleman's Ghost last issue, they saw ancient Atlanteans escape to the shores, to these shores that they're on right now. Not really sure what shores they're on. And he thinks that he's hoping to find some tech that will help, that will save their lives, because they're being poisoned by this orichalcum metal. They're both dying. Black Manta's dying, and so is Torrid. And this particular metal, they're hoping that they can cure themselves, because this same particular ore was part of the ancient Atlanteans that escaped Atlantis 10,000 years ago. And so in the meantime, Devil's Ray, who for some reason that is not explained, he thinks of Black Manta as a false prophet. We don't know why. False prophet of what? He wants to utilize this metal, this orichalcum, in order to create, to forge himself a new trident to use as a weapon. For what purpose, we don't know. Meanwhile, Aquaman, Arthur Curry, is trying to protect Atlantis because some of the Devil Ray's men attacked Atlantis and released a deadly gas, and he's trying to prevent them from attacking again. I'm not really sure how all this is tied into play, but this is what's so frustrating about this. It's clear to me that Chuck Brown wants to create a new mythology. This is leading into an event called Aquaman, but this is done in a very confusing manner. The art is not up to task. I'm just gonna say that the art doesn't do the story any favors. I don't think the dialogue does the story any favors. I think it should be more clear. I think that this isn't the greatest. This is not a great combination of artist and narrative. However, I am piecing together this story, and this is building a new mythology for Aquaman and the Atlanteans, and it's making it more diverse. And there is something to be said here. Where it's leading, by the way, is it looks like Black Manta's ancestry is going to be linked to an offshoot of the Atlanteans that escaped Atlantis 10,000 years ago. And there's probably going to lead to maybe, who knows, some kind of civil war at some point in the future. Similar maybe to what's happening with the three tribes of Amazons. I'm not sure. But in any event, this is confusing. I had to reread the previous issues a few times and this one to sort of get a handle on what's going on. And I wish the art was better. Again, I think that Chuck Brown he's got great intentions here. I applaud his efforts to expand the mythology. I just wish that the story was a little bit more clear and we had a better artist. And that's about as polite as I can put it.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part. So, in terms of a personal preference, and I've talked about this before in terms of this series. First of all, Black Manta's never been a character that had his roots in Atlantis in terms of, having ancestors from Atlantis. That sort of changes the dynamic, right? Like he's always been the nemesis of Aquaman and of man's world, and it was sort of that the two sides, right? Like Aquaman's of Atlantis, he's from the sea, and then you have Black Manta, who's this pirate who, it's that dynamic where he doesn't belong to the ocean, and he's used technology to sort of bring himself to a point where he can fight Aquaman, in the water, almost on equal footing. But it's that it's the armor, it's the outfit, it's the technology that's necessary for him to use in order to be on that equal footing that shows he's so much of a character from man's world. And you're sort of erasing that. You're sort of taking that away from him by now linking him to ancestors in Atlantis's past and linking him to magic. So just for me personally, I'm not a big fan of doing that. I think, again, you're adding to the character, and you're adding layers to him, and typically that's a good thing to do. Just for me, again, as a personal preference, I don't know that I want that from Black Manta. I don't know that it's necessary for me. He's already a villain that I really, really enjoy because he is just who he is, a pirate, a mercenary. He's out for money, and now Chuck Brown's put him in a situation where he's dying. This orichalcum that he has is killing him, and he's finding out that he has roots back in Atlantis' past. So we talk about this Aquaman series coming up. Is that going to be a way of turning Black Manta into an anti-hero, like big comic book, the big two basically, Marvel and DC tend to want to do, right? So they can have a series called Black Manta and have it sell. But I don't know, it just seems strange. It seems a strange editorial choice to me, especially with the Aquaman movie coming up, Aquaman 2, where I thought he was a great character in the first Aquaman movie. He very much, in terms of the aesthetic, and he's out against Aquaman. He's very much of the surface world. There's no part of him that seems like there's any sort of redemption or redemptive value to him. He is a bad guy, right? And now in this Chuck Brown series, we're going a different direction. We're sort of making him a sympathetic character. Are we supposed to feel bad that he's dying? So I don't know. But I will give credit to Chuck Brown, like you said, because he is. In fact, I maybe give him more credit than you do, because I actually don't mind the scripting or the dialogue. I like sort of the gruffness and the shortness um, that Black Manta has when he talks to people. He's a man of kind of a few words, and in that way, it reminds me of the version of Black Manta from the very first time I ever was introduced to the character on the Super Friends cartoon back in the day. That really deep robotic voice. Um, but you're right. It is a little bit confusing. I don't know that this is, well, I don't think this is Chuck Brown's strongest work. He co-writes Bitterroot with David Walker. They won the Eisner for that. That's much better. But he has a co-writer, and it's and Second Set of Eyes can do a lot of things. But even that being said, I think, like you, that the art is not up to task. And I think if the art was better, if the art was more in service to the story, it
Yeah.
would it could kind of cover up some of the weaknesses that Chuck, you might say Chuck's had in terms of pacing um, or plot holes or things like that. But unfortunately, the artwork is to a level where it sort of needs the narrative to prop it up, and
Yeah.
neither one is strong enough on their own to help the other one out, and so they end up having to stand on their own. And unfortunately, I think they're both sort of lacking a little bit. Neither one, in my mind, is strong enough to stand on its own.
Yeah.
With a little bit better art, if the art was just average or a little above average, I don't think you'd notice the troubles in the narrative. If the narrative was a little bit better than average, the art might not be as noticeable. But because they're both letting me down a little bit. Again, this is just me personally. It it feels like more than anything, it feels like missed potential. I want to like this more than I do. I like Black Manta as a character. I think there are interesting ideas here. Like despite my own personal preference of just let Black Manta be a bad guy, I think there are interesting ideas here. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I'm curious to see what this Aquaman series is going to be about. But unfortunately, it's just not living up to its potential. So again, no, nothing personal against the creators. I know they're doing their best here, but it's just not quite working for me. And what's interesting is, so I've seen Matthew Dow Smith's art before over at Marvel. He's done some work on the Doctor Who books before, and his art is much cleaner. So I'm not sure. Um, I'm just not sure why it seems so unfinished here. And to Rocky's point, also the color work is not, and I
Yeah.
don't know if the colorist is getting Marisa Louise. I've seen her do much better coloring than this. I don't know if she's getting the pages late. I don't know if the nature of the roughness of the line work that Matthew Dow Smith is giving her is not leaving her any outs. I'm just not sure, but it's just, in terms of color, it's just such a dreary book.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it
It's very
it's
bland.
already.
It's very bland. All the colors are one. There's no nuance in the coloring. There's no shading. It's all
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. It's like I said, it's very dreary. Like you just opened up and flipped through it, and you're like, God, do I want to read this? It doesn't even look very good.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say is, um, again, because the art isn't super detailed, we're getting this Devil's Ray character who looks so much like Black Manta in terms of his costume.
Yeah.
Is there a connection there? Like we haven't learned anything. Is it just because the art's kind of sloppy and unfinished that they sort of look familiar,
Yeah.
or is there a connection? Again, is it the narrative that's letting me down? Is it the art? I'm not sure. So I don't know. I mean, what I'm hoping is that it all comes together in the last couple issues, um, and despite the art not maybe being as strong as it could be, that we end up getting value out of it. So
Well,
anyway, let's move on to another book where don't know how I feel about the art. We talked about it several times. The fact that it's in black and white. It's Future State Gotham #8, The Next Joker Part 1, The Grift of Laughter, written by Dennis Culver. We have art by Nicola Zemengia, cover by Simone DeMeo. There's no color again, and this isn't the Giannis Milogiannis art that we had seen previously. And I've seen Nicola's art colored before, so again, I'm not sure why we don't get colors here, but I don't know how to feel about this story. I like Grifter. Um, it's a fun story in that it calls back a little bit to the Matthew Rosenberg Grifter story we had in one of the Future State backups, where he was trying to get I can't even remember who it was now, but he was trying to help somebody escape from the magistrate controlled Gotham. Um, so it's kind of fun. It's actually interesting. As much as I don't like the Joker, it's interesting to get a more physical Joker. I always complain about the Joker, how he's, if he really existed, Batman would beat him in like 30 seconds because he's not physically imposing. Well, this is a physically imposing Joker. He's almost Venom-esque when we finally see him take his mask off. So I like that he's a little bit more powerful, still completely psychotic, definitely a match for Grifter. But at the end of the day, what I'm asking myself is, we got the end of Fear State. We know the magistrate failed. We know this is not a future that's coming to pass. Do we need this book? Because I sure the hell don't feel like we need this book at all. Not even a little bit. As much as I, enjoy Grifter as a character, this feels completely unnecessary. And it almost feels like, well, maybe people know that. They read Fear State. They know it's over. They know there is no chance for that possible future to come to pass. How can we get them to keep buying a Future State Gotham book? Oh, we'll put in a future Joker. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you enjoyed it more than me, Rocky. But yeah, I just thought it was okay. I'm ready for this book to go away, and I continue to not understand why it's in black and white. So
yeah.
what do you think?
Well, I thought I want to. I've been a little bit hard on Dennis Culver early on in the earlier issues of Future State Gotham, but I think he when he started out with Joshua Williamson helping him out. I didn't like the earlier issues. Dennis Culver's come into his own here. I think he's proven him. He's gotten better. This is actually this. But for the coloring, if just reading this and pretending it's if I'm just evaluating this as a story, this is about Hush. And like if people are wondering where was Hush during Fear State and Future State, well, here he is, and it's actually not a bad story. It's not a bad story. It's even got the owl representing the city's old money, the whale. It's got these other characters, the dog, Gotham's top crooked cop. It's got a number of different characters here in a Gotham Future State that I think are actually interesting. And Hush actually seems this is actually well done. This art is good, and it has grown on me. I'm still not this. I'm not a manga guy, and I always associate, and I realize black and white is not just manga, but I associate black and white comics with manga, even though that would be unfair of me, but so be it. Uh, I thought this wasn't bad. If you're into the Court of Owls, if you like Hush, this is a decent enough story. I just again, I thought I'm baffled as to why Future State Gotham, why this comic book exists. I'm baffled why it exists as an ongoing. I'm really curious to know if this is even selling, to be honest. But I'd like to know what the sales are in this. No one is talking about this at my local comic shop, so I don't know I guess speculators are buying it because of the covers, but It probably deserves more love than it's getting, but you know, I'm I'm not getting this. I never got this. I got the first issue and that was it, and I haven't got it since because I've got no interest in owning a black and white manga like Batman comic, and sadly that's just the way it is. And yeah, I love Grifter, but man, you gotta give me some color, and I just this just rubs me the wrong way. It's just not for me. Sad to say.
Yeah, good point on Hush. It was nice seeing a future version of him as well. But again, I go back to the fact that we already know this future is not going to exist. So what are we doing here? Wait. So it feels like a waste of time. The other thing
Yeah.
that I'll mention, like I mentioned before, it has a backup, and it's a reprint of a Batman black and white story that came out in February of this year. So at least it wasn't like last time where it was a reprint of a comic that came out in August. It was
Mhm.
barely 2 months old. At least this story is what 10 months old, and it's great with Nick Dragotta art. It's really really cool. If you've never read any Nick Dragotta's stuff or seen his artwork, especially the East of West, that's the vibe I get here. The series he does at Image with Jonathan Hickman. But again, I've already bought Batman Black and White. I don't need this. Again, I'm like Rocky. I'm not buying physical copies of Future State because I'm not paying for black and white comic, especially not one that I'm paying $1 extra for a backup that I already paid for 10 months ago. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's move on. We have Teen Titans Academy #9, Homecoming. Tim Sheridan's the writer, Mike Norton artist, Hi-Fi colorist, Rob Lee letters. We saw last issue, and thus the Homecoming that Roy Harper showed up at Teen Titans Academy at the school that's named after him. And man, that's got to be weird. If you think you're dead, they think you're dead. They've named the school after you, and you show up at the front door. So, what'd you think of this one, Rock?
It was well, first I got to give Tim Sheridan a compliment. This is actually one of the first issues since the beginning where he actually named the characters. I didn't have to go back to previous issues to find out who the characters were. I had to do a little bit of hunting, but they were actually named when the characters spoke to each other. They actually said the name of the person they were talking to, so it was actually easier to piece together who all these students were. A little bit easier than in previous issues. So now, having said that, um, I guess let's focus on the positive. Roy Harper showed up last issue, and we got Roy Harper and Wally West greeting each other at the beginning of this comic, which is good. Wally West, last time Wally saw Roy died in the pages of Flash, and he saw Roy give his life in the sort of the redoing over, I guess, or the revamping of Heroes in Crisis. But of course, Roy Harper, we know, is alive. He is alive. He was the Black Lantern / Omega Lantern, Darkseid's Omega Lantern, and at the end of Infinite Frontier, he ultimately had the Black Ring taken away from him. The Omega, he was no longer the Omega Lantern, and he was returned to Earth. But before he returned to Earth, he saw a vision so he knows that his daughter Leon is still alive. So he's come back down to Earth, but his first place that he's going to go before he looks for his daughter Leon is that he goes to Teen Titans Academy. And Roy Harper is very surprised to discover that there's a statue of him up front, and that the school is actually called the Roy Harper Teen Titans Academy as a tribute to him. And he's there, and essentially in this issue, we've got we finally know who's really been. It's not just Red X that's been trying to recruit and steal away all these students from Teen Titans Academy, but apparently so has Simon of the Fearsome Five. He wants to create a new Fearsome Five, and he wants his 5 members to be the Wanderer, Tress, Bolt, Dane, and Red X. He wants those 5 to be a member of his new Fearsome Five. And
All right, Rocky. So I haven't seen the Fearsome Five I can't even remember since when.
yeah,
So is this, and maybe you have seen them more recently than me. My question is this a new look? Is this the first time Simon has looked like this, where he doesn't have like the fishbowl head?
I
You
think
know?
so. You raise a good point. I was surprised. I I always thought of the Fearsome Five as being really evil. I
Yeah.
never thought of Simon as being someone that would go and want to recruit students at a school. This is why this felt very, very much off to me. This is a very odd choice for writer Tim Sheridan to do. I don't, you know, I think it's unfair of me as a reviewer to play script doctor. But if I was going to be script doctor, the last person I would have recruiting the students would be Simon from the Fearsome Five.
Right.
But I mean, but that's all well and good. So this is the new DC Omniverse. That's all well and good. But I don't really understand. I mean, to me, the argument that Red X had about wanting to recruit the students. I mean, Red X is a teenager himself, apparently. We don't know who Red X is, but so on what basis is Red X going to acquire students? What's Red X going to teach them? He's also their age. So that's nonsense. So what's Simon going to do? He wants to create a new Fearsome Five to what? To protect them against what? I mean, the sales pitch that Simon has here doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't find it convincing at all, saying that, well, you're just going to be recruited and used by these other heroes, and there's going to be another crisis here and another crisis there. Come to me and I'll protect you from all that. Well, why? Isn't that kind of what heroes do? Isn't that why they're at the academy? So that they can participate in all the very things that Simon wants to protect them from? It just seems crazy to me. And then to top it off, Red X ends up literally decapitating Simon at the end before the rest of the Titans show up. So before Donna Troy and before...
Does he, though?
What's that?
Does he, though? I mean, Simon, the whole thing is he controls mental abilities, so I wonder if he is casting
fair
some
enough.
sort of
Is it all...
illusion.
It might be a massive hallucination.
Yes, to mask their escape is what I was thinking.
Sure, I guess that's a good point. Maybe that's what it is. And you know, but I don't know if it is. Like, it seems, because Red X is clearly against Simon. Red X is angry at the Wanderer and Dane and Tress for even considering joining Simon's Fearsome Five. Because how could you do that? And it just seems like such a strange. All this drama seems so forced to me. It doesn't feel natural, and that's what I'm not really like. That's why I haven't liked this series so far. The drama in this school, we never see the students in class. In this issue, we see them organizing a dance, like an enchantress enchanted by the sea, and Garth shows up, the previous Aqua Boy or the old Aqua Boy or whatever. Garth shows up and, you know, uses his powers to put the water on the ceiling to make the dance look so cool, and then so we have this trichotomy of they're supposed to be students at Teen Titans Academy, but Red X wants them to be his students. Now Simon wants them to join the Fearsome Five, and it just seems like kind of just messy, and we know Amanda Waller wants to have at least one student from the Teen Titans Academy to join her, and that's going to be part of the drama and the plot leading into the War for Earth 3. So this whole thing seems like disconnected to me, and it doesn't it doesn't really feel cohesive to me, to be quite blunt. And then at the end of this, Red X, and at the end of this issue, now if it's a hallucination, Dane and Red X escape after supposedly killing Simon. So it seems to me that Simon, that's why I'm inclined to think it's not a hallucination, because Red X is literally holding Simon's head and then takes off with Dane. But I suppose it's possible that you're right, it could be a hallucination, but that's one hell of a hallucination. But but in any event, the whole thing just seems a little bit bonkers to me. I don't know. This is a school that apparently parents you can send your children to, but some of the children have secret identities. Some of the teachers have secret identities. Nobody has to say who they are. Everyone can have a secret. Like, this isn't even the case in the X-Men over in Strange Academy or the X-Men for the Marvel Universe. So the rules here seem all wonky. It seems all batty. It just really seems something is amiss here, and it's not working. And the Red X thing is, I continue I'm just so frustrated with Red X. This isn't really working for me, but whatever. I just want this to end. I want this Red X thing to end. I don't know where this is going. I'm still not entirely captivated by this, but I don't know. I'm frustrated. How do you feel about it, Chase?
Yeah, I agree. I hate to sound like a broken record, but my problem with this issue is the same problem that I talked about last issue. And where I was saying that Tim Sheridan's he's not finishing off any stories. He doesn't finish off any plot threads, right? And that's the problem. Like he keeps just starting new ones. And what does he do in this issue? He starts a new plot thread. Here comes Simon to recruit members of the Teen Titans Academy who don't have families, who he thinks kind of views as loners that he thinks will join up with him. Which I agree with you. His reasoning, his logic is very tenuous at best. He's saying, okay, don't believe what they're telling you. They're lying to you. They're adults. They lie and they're just using you. So what, trade one master for another? I mean, at least Matt, the one of the kids that he recruits says the same thing. I'm not thinking about throwing in with this guy. I want to go out on my own. I want to make my own decision. Red X kind of the same thing. So at least it's acknowledged in the story. But, as interesting as that may be and potential for storyline that it might have, finish off some damn threads. Again, like we said it from the very first issue of Teen Titans Academy. Don't drag this Red X thing out so much and think you're cute with it that it becomes obnoxious and annoying. But I guess you don't have a choice when you're a comic book writer. It's got to become obnoxious and annoying when it's a mystery like this, because so many people are writing for the trade. Well, we at least got to wait till the end of the second trade, right? So that's issue 10. We're only on what, issue 8 here, issue 9, issue 9. So maybe next issue we'll find out who Red X is. I'm not going to be holding my breath.
I will say, sorry, I was just going
No,
to
go ahead.
quickly add that one thing I liked Roy Harper mentioning that he wants to find Leon, and Donna Troy and the rest of the Titans told Roy that they would help him look for Leon. And we know that his daughter Leon is the Cheshire Cat over in Alleytown in the pages of Catwoman. And we know that Cheshire, the mother, the former lover and mother of Leon, confronts Leon and introduces herself to Leon in the pages in the next issue of Catwoman, which will be coming out, which we're going to be reviewing, I think, next week. And so little maybe a potential spoiler alert there, but I like that. So I like the draw. I like the fact that Roy is going to be looking for Leon, and we might expect to see Cheshire Cat as a member of Titans Academy in the future, because we already have Flash's children, Jay and Irie, are going to be members of Teen Titans Academy. Because I think if we have some more familiar characters in the Teen Titans Academy, I think it might raise the status of this title, hopefully.
Yeah, again, but it just feels overstuffed to me. Like, yeah, you're right. It was great to see some interaction between Roy and the old Titans, but this is Teen Titans Academy, so should that even be there? Like, I thank God we have Titans United for people that want the old feel of what the Titans feels like, right? Because this is trying to be so many things that it ends up being nothing. When you try to do, there's too many plates spinning. You try to do too much, and it just feels like Tim Sheridan's bitten off more than he can chew. And in a way, it's a compliment. I've talked before about, it's almost like he's establishing a Sheridan universe here within the DCU. But unfortunately, you can't do that with just one monthly book. There's too many characters. They don't get enough spotlight. Like Rocky said, at least we get a little bit more of the actual characters' names in this one. But there's too much going on. We need to wrap up some of these plot threads. Rocky makes a good point. The whole thing is just messy. Mike Norton, I love the guy, but a superhero artist he is not, and especially a teen book, no, it's too much. Rafa Sandoval's the artist for this book. His covers are fantastic for this particular one. So yeah, the art didn't really impress me on this one either. So for me, this was a bit of a miss. And this is a book I want to like more than I do, unfortunately, because I think it has potential, but it's getting bogged down with just too many different. The scope of the story is too big. It needs to be narrowed. Need to end some of these plot threads. Don't start new ones. Just give us some answers to some of these questions. Focus on the kids. Focus on the young heroes. finish off the Red X, my God, and just humanize these characters for us. Make us care about these young students. That's the biggest problem. I don't care. I haven't been told enough about them to care what happens to them. Oh, so 5 of them have basically been kidnapped. Simon's trying to recruit them. I don't care. You haven't made me care about the characters. So what do I care if Simon kills them all? I don't. I don't know them.
Mm.
So anyway, let's move on to the next book. It's Pennyworth #5. It's written by Scott Bryan Wilson. Juan Gedeon is the artist. John Rush does colors. AW's DC Hopkins is on letters. Again, if you're a big fan of the show that was originally on Epix and now is on HBO Max, the Pennyworth series, which just got renewed for a 3rd season, this is going to be right up your alley. It's Alfred Pennyworth back in the day, World War II, when he was working for MI5, kind of the prelude to MI6. That's who James Bond works for, kind of the Secret Service, the intelligence agency of the British Empire. And this is just a lot of fun. Seeing Alfred reminding us of how formidable he is and how he chose to look after Bruce Wayne and be a part of the Wayne family. So again, if you're a big fan of that series, or if you just love Alfred Pennyworth, and thank God we have this, because we have no Alfred Pennyworth in the regular Bat titles, which is really unfortunate that they haven't brought him back yet. He can't come back soon enough in my mind. Like, Alfred's one of those characters I did not realize how much I loved Alfred until he's been gone for, God, it's been a couple years now. So yeah, I'm enjoying this. It's a dual narrative. We have flashbacks telling us stories of a mission that Alfred undertook during World War II. Meanwhile, in present day, he's been kidnapped, and it seems like his kidnap in the present day has everything to do with this mission that they're flashing back. And the issue ends on a cliffhanger when he's introduced to an old flame of his who was his partner at MI5, who betrayed him. And she comes walking in on the last page, and she looks like she hasn't aged a day. Whereas Alfred himself, obviously, he's got the wrinkles and he's bald, and time has passed for him. And this Shirley person hasn't aged a day, and he's obviously taken aback by that. So we'll see how that all plays out. This is a 7-issue mini. This is issue 5, and I think the main cover is fantastic. It's the British flag that at one point one of the red bars turns into like a heartbeat monitor.
Yeah.
While Alfred's running the other direction wearing his hospital smock, because he does get rescued from the Arctic and ends up in the hospital and has to fight in the hospital gown. If you've ever been to the hospital, there's no back, right? Just your bare ass cheeks to the wind. So it's I love that cover. It's fantastic. So yeah, not enough. This is another one of those titles that I know it probably has a limited audience for people that are big fans of Alfred or love the Pennyworth TV show. So that's probably part of the reason I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. But it's just a really fun series. And if you're like me and you miss Alfred as a character, this is hitting that spot, scratching that itch, so to speak. So, and I know you were a little behind on this, Rocky. Have you had a chance to catch up?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm enjoying this, and I love the cover too. I love you saw you mentioned almost like a cardiogram on the cover, the heartbeat, because Alfred, of course, is freezing to death and his heart is slowing down, and he's ultimately saved from freezing to death in the Arctic, and that's juxtaposed against his present day incarceration, where he is ultimately confronted by this Shirley who looks young, and this is 30, 40 years, possibly 30, 40, 50 years later. I'm not sure how Alfred's supposed to be in the present, but I like it. This is this actually, it's this series that makes me miss Alfred Pennyworth all the more. I wish he was back in the mainstream Batman comics, but it's nice to get some history of Alfred Pennyworth, because really, when you think about it, of course, this is a guy, if he's the butler to the future Batman, that this guy, what Bruce Wayne must have learned from his butler. I mean, Bruce Wayne didn't have to travel around the world to learn about intelligence operations. He could have learned it right from his butler, and I think he did. And I think there's a lot of stories that couldn't be told. Some have been told already about, Alfred probably training Batman or a young Bruce Wayne. But this here in Pennyworth is just with a young. This is right up my alley. I love the TV show. I don't know. I don't know if it's been renewed for a second season or not. Maybe
Third. It's
or
been
a
renewed
third.
for
Sorry.
a
Yes.
third season. Yeah.
Right. Because I'm halfway through the second. But in any event, I like it. I like this comic. It's actually on my pull list. Kudos to Scott Bryan Wilson, the writer. He captures it just right. The artist, Juan Gedeon, I think does a pretty good job here, drawing all the characters. He's very good at, drawing the younger and the older versions of Alfred. I could always tell what time period they were in because of the art. It was well done. And so, yeah, I'm enjoying this series. So I'm quite happy with it. Two more issues to go.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how it's all going to wrap up, and even more than that, I'm really curious how they're going to bring Alfred back. I cannot believe they haven't brought him back already.
Yeah.
Geez, man, give me my Alfred back. Anyway, let's move on. Next up, we have Batgirls #1 debut issue with about 1,000 covers. It's from Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad as writers, same team that brings us writing team that brings us Wonder Woman. Jorge Corona is the artist, Sarah Stern on colors, Becca Carey on letters. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this one, Rocky, because I know the prelude and the backups that we had leading into this, you weren't a big fan of. So,
Yeah.
but despite the fact Cassandra Cain is one of your, if not your favorite DC character, this isn't exactly the version that we've gotten before, though.
Yeah, no, it's not. But I should say I listened to an interview with Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, and I can't remember. It was a YouTuber. I forget her name, but in any event, I want to be fair to Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad. I know they are aware, or at least they say they're aware of the history of of Spoiler and of Cassandra Cain, and I know what histories they're really focusing on. Very clearly, this is really a buddy. This is a buddy system here. This is a partnership. This is where they talked about how they want to play off these characters of Stephanie Brown and Cassandra Cain. They want to play off each other. Cassandra Cain is being written. Michael W. Conrad stated they're writing Cassandra Cain as somebody who is is reserved, has a lot to learn, is a little not quite as outspoken. Stephanie Brown is more of the crazy party animal, and so it's definitely being played, and you can even tell by the covers. I mean, these covers almost look like this is written for, if not teenagers, almost preteens. If I'm looking at the variant covers here, I mean, some of these covers are just really on the preteen level. So, it's advertised as ages 13 plus. And this is definitely a narrative like that. I mean, some of the alternate covers here, I don't think are up to task or worthy of being on a DC Comics cover on some of these alternate covers for this series, to be blunt. But DC's trying to attract a different audience, and look, I respect that. I mean, I say again, every generation deserves to have some comic book speak to them, and it might be that my version of Cassandra Cain is not going to be written for the time being, but that's all right. I just hope that this attracts that audience. Now, getting into the story, the bad person here, the villain of this story is Seer. Well, Seer was built up to be this anti-Oracle, this powerful anti-Oracle, this evil bitch, and it ends up being this Seer appears to be just this small-statured, purple-haired teenager who is just manipulating events, and this involves Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown moving in with Barbara Gordon in kind of a dilapidated apartment where Oracle is setting up her own computer system in the apartment, and then basically they just end up, it's almost like I think it's like that old Hitchcock movie, what was it, Rear Window or whatever it was called, where it was they spy on their neighbor and they think their neighbor's up to no good, and they can't let their neighbors know who they really are. And so Cassandra Cain at one point, she ends up being kind of mugged when she's bringing in the groceries, and she can't beat up the guys wanting to mug her because she can't let them know that she's like really good at fighting, because they might know that she's Cassandra Cain, Batgirl. And so she goes out at night and beats them up, and like I'm I you know, and there's I, I I just don't find this to be my kind of story. Like it's I think this is a very overly simplistic. This is right up there with like DC superhero girls to me. Like just a little above that. This isn't sophisticated. In fact, this is a I can't believe Seer is this major villain in Fear State and is now almost as like a kindergarten kid in front of a computer who can give Oracle a run for her money. I just this, honestly, I don't even want to criticize it because it's so completely obviously for a younger demographic that it's almost foolish of me to point out how much of this does not fit coming out of Fear State and does not fit with with the pre-existing versions of these characters. This just doesn't work for me, and the art doesn't work for me. Although the art is good, I want to compliment the art. The art is good for the style for this type of story that they want to tell, for the demographic that they're going for. It's great art. It's fun. It's kinetic. Uh, Great on facial expressions. The coloring is great. There's a great sequence where Barbara Gordon gets them their own little, like, almost like their mopeds. They got like bat mopeds almost, and they reject that, and instead they basically take a car that the guys at Cassandra Cain beat up. They take their car and they go on a joyride. And so there's some fun moments here. You can tell that Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad are having fun with it, and they're trying to engender and create some adventure for Stephanie Brown and Cassandra Cain. And I think for the most part, they succeed. So I'm not, just because this isn't my Cassandra Cain doesn't mean that there isn't fun to be had in this comic. And I think I hope that it finds the audience that it's geared toward.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of took it with a grain of salt because I felt the same way that I'm not really the target audience for this. It's clear they're going for a younger demographic. So if I look at this from outside of continuity and just read it purely for what it is, forget about Fear State, forget about Seer, forget about anything that comes before, and just read this purely on its own, was I entertained? And the answer is yes, I was entertained. Even though I'm a big fan of Jorge Corona, I don't think this is Jorge Corona's best work. I don't know that Jorge Corona's artwork suits a Batgirl's superhero book. Um, that's not to say again that the artwork's bad by any stretch. I think the artwork's quite good, and I think particularly the color work in conjunction with the line work gives it a certain sort of fun, youthful, energetic feel, which
Very
I
much
think
so.
is exactly So, and I think that's exactly what they're going for.
Yeah.
So if I look at this out of context of anything else, yes, it's entertaining. Do I think it's necessarily for me? Nah, probably not. I'm probably in that same demographic you are. And it's probably something where, like you said, it is a little simplistic and I might tire of it relatively quickly. I think the way they're trying to prevent that from happening is by having it tie in to Future State and the Magistrate and Fear State and all that kind of stuff. But again, that continuity is so wonky at this point. So, and I'm much more of a fan of a more sophisticated Cassandra Cain, much like yourself. And I've never been a fan of Stephanie Brown.
Yeah, neither have
She's
I.
had so many. She's had so many different personalities. Like she's
Yeah.
almost like Rose and Thorn at this point. She's had so many different. Sometimes she's more serious. Sometimes she's more flaky. Here, apparently, she's a party girl. It's like I can't keep track anymore of Stephanie Brown. She can just go away. I don't need to have her in my comics. Uh, so that being said, obviously I'm going to keep checking out the press copies, press preview copies. We'll see how it all plays out. I do love some Barbara Gordon, um, but again, like this characterization of her doesn't match up with what we see of her in Nightwing.
Yeah.
She's much more matronly here, which I guess they're trying to play up this idea that she's this older mentor type Oracle / Batgirl to these two younger Batgirls, but that's not how she's portrayed in Tom Taylor's Nightwing. So it's a little weird. So yeah, I mean, I think that if you have young readers, like my daughter's 10, I would totally give this to her. She would probably dig it.
Yeah.
So 10 to 14, especially girls, comic readers, probably gonna love it. And again, I was entertained, but like Rocky said, we're just not the target audience for this. So, um, but kudos to Clunan and Conrad. I think they're doing what they set out to do,
Yeah.
and
Agreed.
and based on the previews that we saw and the backups, I did not expect to like this as much as I did. I
Yeah.
did actually like this, but again, I just wonder how long before I get bored because it's not really sophisticated. So. All right. Well, since it's DC, we're not done talking about Batman yet. I Am Batman #4 from writer John Ridley, Steven Segovia, and Christian Duce are the artists. Rex Locust does colors. Troy Pateri on letters. God, I have so many problems with this book. And again, this is it's not working for me. And the biggest part of why it's not working, I've talked about this before, the characterization of Lucius Fox here makes no sense. He's anti-vigilante. He's anti-Batman. What? You're Lucius Fox. How in God's name can you be anti-Batman? I don't care what trauma you went through. It doesn't make any logical sense, He's buying into all the crap that Simon's saying. Batman's bad for Gotham. I mean, my God, man. You know Batman is personally. You can't, it just doesn't make any sense. And the other thing that makes no sense, that drives me constantly insane, where exactly does this fit in the timeline? Because this is right after Fear State, but yet in Future State Gotham,
Yeah. I know.
the Future State titles, Jace Fox had just become the other Batman. So how is this happening decades before that and he's already Batman? I Oh my God, this timeline makes zero sense, none whatsoever. And much like I was saying with Teen Titans Academy, where Tim Sheridan hasn't made me care about the characters, I don't care about the Fox family. John Ridley has portrayed it like this big soap opera. I keep comparing it to Empire, the Fox TV show. That's what it feels like to me. Dynasty or Dallas or any of those old school sort of soap operatic stories. But I have no point of view character. I have no way in. Who am I supposed to relate to here? I really don't care about any of these characters. I'm supposed to care about Lucius Fox, but he's completely unlikable because this is not the Lucius Fox that I ever have known or seen or cared about that always had Bruce Wayne's back. The Lucius Fox that, even if we talk about the Morgan Freeman version of Lucius Fox from the Batman, from the Christopher Nolan trilogy of Batman movies, like he was somebody you knew had Batman's back, that had integrity and would go to bat for Batman, would never betray Bruce Wayne. And then he acts like this. And again, I know John Ridley's a super talented writer. Other History of the DC Universe, one of my favorite series of this year. It's going to win awards, and it should. I don't care about these characters because John Ridley hasn't given me a reason to care about these characters other than to tell me they're the Fox family, and they've now that Bruce Wayne has been disgraced, they're the first family of Gotham. He has all of Bruce Wayne's money. Well, so what? If he's going to act like a complete dick and completely illogical, which makes no sense because Lucius Fox is a very intelligent person. You're not leaving me any outs, Ridley. Like, and that's setting aside the continuity problems. You add the continuity problems in, and I'm just like, oh my God. And I don't. And let me get this straight. Or set the record straight. I don't put all the blame on this on John Ridley. I think DC set him up to fail. He was supposed to start. It was
Yeah.
supposed to be Jace Fox taking over the regular Batman title, starting with issue 100, and then they saw the numbers. DC saw the numbers. Some vice president at AT&T, probably, because remember this, all these calls were made when AT&T was still in charge. Saw the sales numbers on Batman and said, no, but let's have our cake and eat it too. Leave Tynan on Batman. We'll give Ridley his own title. And now it's all convoluted and doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. The timeline doesn't make any sense. The story doesn't make any sense. I feel bad for John Ridley. They did him dirty. Because again, I know he's talented. This man's won an Academy Award for his writing. I know he's talented. I want, again, and it's a story I want to like more than I do, but between the incongruous nature of Lucius Fox and the way he's acting. And maybe I could buy it again if the timeline, if this was 20 years down the road, if Lucius Fox had been fighting within the system against the corruption of the magistrate for decades, I could see him, evolving or knuckling under to say, in order to get along, I've got to go along. But I don't even know where this fits in. So, you can either point the blame at editorial for screwing over Ridley with what they did, or you can point the blame at the complete lack of continuity that makes zero sense. Like, I challenge anyone at DC to just explain the continuity to me, please. For the love of God, explain the continuity to me. I want you to. I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong. I want this to make sense. Just please, anybody. But unfortunately, it doesn't work for me. It really doesn't. It's a chore to read this, because as I'm trying to read it and put all the pieces together, it doesn't make any sense. And for me, that pulls me out of the story. Like, I know I'm one of these continuity geeks and whatever, and I want things to line up and make sense. I've tried to let a lot of that go with what DC's done in recent years with Everything Counts, and, I don't necessarily have to think everything has to fit together just right. At the end of the day, just give me a good story. Unfortunately, because it's so illogical, it pulls me out of the story. And again, along with the characterization of the Fox family, who I've not been given a reason to care about, it's not a good story. It's frustrating, because again, I think this had a lot of potential. And initially, when I heard John Ridley was going to write a person of color, one of the Fox sons, as Batman, I was excited. This was not what I was excited for. This is a mess. So I don't know. Maybe you feel differently, Rocky. Am I wrong?
Well, I'm not quite as harsh on it as you are. I will say this, that this issue at least sets up that, the one detective here is being sent to New York. Because she's been basically kicked off the Gotham PD, so she's going to New York, because we know that's where Jace is going to end up. Batman is going to end up in New York City, and that's why his supporting cast is moving along with him. Look, the Fox family is something that I agree with you. It's a little bit wonky, because Lucius Fox was always in support of Batman. He was always in support of Batman. Then suddenly now he doesn't like this other Batman, and it happens to be his son. It's hard to buy it. Now, he was tortured by Punchline. We have to remember that. So he did undergo some psychological torture by Punchline during Fear State. That is mentioned in this issue. Between that and the violence, and his own wife was worked for the magistrate, trying to create laws that outlawed masks themselves. So, but the whole Fox family being essentially, Lucius Fox and his wife both sort of being against masks, and then their one son is Batwing and the other one is the next Batman. I mean, it just seems really forced. And now, having said that, there is actually family drama here. They have a daughter in the hospital. I mean, John Ridley, I agree with you. John Ridley, in many ways, he was given a very, I won't say an impossible task, but I won't say he was set up to fail per se, but he had a pretty big obstacle, and maybe he was set up to fail. Jace, we don't, having another Batman, and it really does feel just like the Black Batman. That's what this is. It's Batman, but he's black. I mean, that's the way it kind of feels. And that doesn't mean that he can't get his own agency and his own sort of independence, but he's going to have to do it in New York City, because he can't have it in Gotham City. Also, even the Seer is mentioned in this issue, and we know from the Batgirls that we just reviewed that Seer is this little purple-haired teenager, for God's sakes, which removes any gravitas from that villain. So I don't know. I will say this: I really love I love the art here. I like the villain. Simon Saint is in this issue too. Simon Saint ends up being killed. His daughter, the sister, Tiffany, ends up, Tammy wakes up from her coma. So that happened. I'm not really sure how all this is going to move into him. Why is this Batman going to ultimately be moving to New York City? I'm not sure. we know in the Bat books, a lot of crazy stuff's going to be happening going into Shadow War. Bruce Wayne's going to leave Gotham, and we know that Jason's going to be going to New York City. So I don't know what exactly who's going to be protecting Gotham City. I guess the rest of the Bat family or the Bat girls, Nightwing's in Bloodhaven. So we got Bat girls and Oracle in Gotham. But in any event, I'm hoping he finds some sort of uniqueness in New York City, because he really is nothing but a sort of a unfortunately he's kind of a copycat and kind of a sad imitation in Gotham City. Sad to say.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you think about it, the Fox family is sort of they're more Batman than the Wayne family. Because, like you said, one of them is Batman, the other Batman, new Batman, whatever you want to call it, and the other son's a Nightwing or
That's
Batwing.
true. Yeah.
So, yeah, and they have all the money, and the Fox family has all the money now. They've out Batmaned the Wayne family.
Yeah, well, but the other thing here is this issue actually ends with Lucius Fox being asked to subsidize Talos, a tactical assault light operator suit, which is basically another glorified magistrate program, which we just finished going through. So this is a rehash of the plot line we just finished, and so I don't even like this story. Like this is just a really poor. I'm not interested in where this is going. That's the sad part. I mean, this is like Magistrate 2.0 at the end of this, and it's just not working for me. But in any event, we'll see where it goes. But whatever.
Yeah, maybe it's working for others, but yeah, not so much for us. Okay, because it's DC, we're not done with Batman yet. We have Robin and Batman #2, written by Jeff Lemire. Art and colors are by Dustin Nguyen. Letters by Steve Wands. We really enjoyed the first issue. This is, I guess it's in continuity because it's not Black Label, although it easily could be. But anyway, it's a 3-issue mini. Larger size issues are like 38 pages, whatnot, 36 pages. So, what'd you think of this one, Rock?
I liked it. I liked it. It was actually, I really liked how they, how Robin, I guess young Dick Grayson, ends up spending some time with the Teen Titans in this issue, and I thought it was actually quite good. He's sort of bullied at school, and he gets in trouble at school. Alfred goes to the school, stands up for young Dick Grayson with the principal. I thought a lot of that was a little bit tropey. I thought, I think that, young Dick Grayson was obviously, he was bullied, but he did get into a fight. Alfred is sticking up for him. So you get the sense that Alfred is sort of like the father figure because Bruce Wayne's never around. And Alfred, you can tell, is very much on Dick's side, and because somebody has to, because let's face it, Bruce Wayne is never really around. Having said that, what I found very funny was he ends up going and he essentially infiltrates. They go to the Justice League satellite, and he ends up meeting the younger, I guess, the sidekicks of the Justice League, and Wonder Girl, Kid Flash, and Aqualad, and it's he ends up. There's Chip Zdarsky here. He does a good job. Pardon me?
Jeff Lemire.
Sorry. I was actually thinking of Teardrops there for a second. Jeff Lemire, I love the dialogue here. I love how he portrays the intelligence of a young Dick Grayson, the way he interacts with the team. He actually fits in quite well. He fits in so well. He has so much fun, and he ends up going back and he tells Alfred that he had such a good time, and then Batman asks him for a report, and then of course Batman tells him to report, and it ends up that Batman actually gave young Dick Grayson a job, gave him an assignment to basically psychologically evaluate each sidekick member of the Justice League, and that's what he did. And so Alfred is happy that young Dick Grayson had fun meeting friends, whereas Batman's more happy that he evaluated and psychologically analyzed his friends. So it's like Dick Grayson has got two fathers. He's got like the Batman, who's the analyzer. He's got Alfred, who's the softer, more emotional side. And anyways, I quite liked it. The art was fantastic. With that particular, just that nice sort of like painted, sort of soft tone style. This worked for me. It put a smile on my face. I enjoyed this much more than the first issue myself. I just thought it was more fun. This was more Dick Grayson being a young Dick Grayson, where even though Alfred was upset with Batman for Batman making Dick sort of evaluate his friends, uh, Dick, young Dick Grayson, he knows Dick is I always consider Dick Grayson to be the most psychologically healthy and self-aware of the Bat family, even more so than Tim Drake. And Dick Grayson knows how to have fun and be analytical at the same time. And you could see the beginnings of that in this issue, and that's what Jeff Lemire scripts so well. So I liked it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a big fan of Dustin Nguyen's watercolor style,
Mhm.
but it does work here, and it often does. I mean, there's a reason that Jeff Lemire works with Dustin. There's a reason that their books have a certain feel and aesthetic. When you talk about Ascender or Descender, uh, they're all the watercolor painted style, like you mentioned, and it gives it a certain old fashioned and a certain charming feel to the story. As much as I'm not a big fan of watercolor, so that being said, what's so interesting in this issue that Lemire does, because there's all the charm um, and sort of interesting aspect of the story as told from the perspective of Dick Grayson, and that charming art, and that's all juxtaposed against sort of the cynical nature of who Batman is. And so, just when you think this is sort of a feel good type story, and on Dick Grayson's birthday, Bruce Wayne is really giving him a treat by taking him up to meet Superman and Wonder Woman and meet the Justice League and sort of interact with the other members or other sidekicks, sort of a pre-Teen Titans. When he comes back home, the rug is pulled out from under Dick Grayson, who sort of knew it was coming, and us, the readers, who didn't know it was coming, that all along Dick was analyzing. And it's just such a cynical sort of Bruce Wayne thing to do, right? Like, and Bruce, even when I mean, Alfred's shocked. Alfred is kind of our point of view. He's our voice in the story. When Dick gives his report, here's how I would take out. Here's the weakness. Donna Troy has no weaknesses except that she always sees the good in everybody. She would never see me coming. She would never suspect I would, try to take her out. Wally West, his power levels are off the charts, but he has no confidence. I'd get into his head and he'd slow down and I'd strike. It's Dick being completely analytical and unfeeling, and Alfred is our voice. Because it was such an uplifting and sort of happy event for Dick to go and meet these other heroes and interact with sidekicks his own age, and Alfred's there to say to Bruce, how could you, man, on his birthday? And Batman's saying, he's a soldier, not a mascot. If he's going to be in the company of demigods, he needs to know how to defeat them, just in case. It's such a Batman thing to do. Um, and it's important to remember who Dick is, uh, and the fact that now in the pages of Tom Taylor, I love that this is coming out, this series from Lemire and Nguyen is coming out right now when we have the Tom Taylor, Bruno Redondo Nightwing series coming out, because if anything, what this does with this early days of Dick Grayson's interactions with Batman, his early days of being Robin, his earliest days, reminding us of what he went through and sort of the crucible by fire and being subjected to this paranoia from Batman and this cynical viewpoint, and then to see him still be heroic and positive and full of hope over in the Taylor Redondo series. it reinforces just what a special character Dick Grayson is. And again, when we get stories like this, it reminds me of why Dick Grayson is the favorite DC hero of so many comic creators that have worked in the DC universe. Because despite all of this, despite the cynicism of Bruce Wayne, despite the paranoia, Dick still has that hopefulness in his heart. So I really enjoyed the issue as much as it was sort of deflating at the end. It at least it felt real, Yes, that's exactly what Batman would do. It wasn't this fun treat. It wasn't this birthday gift that was, to feel good. Bruce doesn't see Dick as a mascot. He's a soldier in the war against crime, in the war against threats that are Justice League level that could destroy the the city of Gotham or the whole planet or the whole universe or what have you. So yeah, fantastic work from Lemire and Wynn.
And just to be clear, it makes Batman look, Batman's a dick.
Yeah,
Dick
exactly.
Grayson. The name Dick might be associated with Grayson, but it's Batman who's the dick here. I mean, really, without Alfred, my God, can you imagine young Dick Grayson? What Dick Grayson will grow up to be? I mean, this is what Batman did was really horrible when you think about it. It was just plain awful. I mean, it was not a
Yeah,
good thing
well,
to make a young kid do, but whatever.
yeah, I mean, there's different ways of looking at it. You could say, well, he's making sure that Dick can take care of himself, So there's that aspect of it. But there's
Yeah.
100%, as somebody who went to school to be a child psychologist, yes, there's something to be said for letting a goddamn kid be a goddamn kid, you know. Yes, he's a soldier. Yes, he's a soldier, but guess what? So are a lot of kid soldiers, children soldiers in Africa
Yeah.
with the genocides and the tribal armies and whatnot.
No,
There's a
but
reason.
yeah.
There's a reason that they commit suicide at such a high rate. Like
Oh, good
kids
Lord.
aren't meant to be soldiers. They're not meant to be subjected to that trauma.
No, they're
So
not. I mean, when I first met you, Chase, the first thing I thought of, I never thought, the first thing I thought of wasn't how I could take you out. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like how many
exactly.
people do that? Like when you meet somebody for the first time, it's like, how could I take this person out if I absolutely had to? It's like, are you serious?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's so like frat guy, right? Like you meet somebody for the first time and you're like sizing them up at a party.
Uh,
Like, yeah, I can take them. Come on, Bruce. You don't got to be a frat guy.
yeah.
All right. Up next, we have Wonder Woman #6, Homecoming Part 6 from writer Joelle Jones. Layla Del Duca is the artist. Jordi Belair on colors. Pat Brosso on letters. So, again, we have a different artist. Joelle Jones did the first 4 issues. Last issue, we had Adriana Mello. Now we have a new artist on this one. Very much aping the style, though, of Jordi, or not Jordi Belair, sorry, of Joelle Jones. So much so that I didn't realize it wasn't Joelle Jones until I got to the credits. So I guess kudos to Layla for doing a good job of fooling me. Um, but then I'm not the biggest fan of Joelle Jones art anyway because I'm not a fan of her line weights. Her line weights are really thick, and I feel like it makes the art feel sort of static. Um, but regardless of that, the problem I have with this book is, oh my god, I don't have any idea what's going on anymore at this point. Who is Yara Flor that anybody cares this much? That Hera cares? That she's afraid Zeus will care? Like
Yeah.
I'm over it at this point. It lost its momentum when it was late, and now we have the inconsistency in the art. I like what was the whole point of her having a Brazilian boyfriend, and now she's in love with Hera's grandson? Like
Yeah. Eros. Yeah.
I I don't know what the hell's going on in this book. It hasn't been good enough that I was willing to go back and read because I feel like I would need to go back and read from the beginning to try to make any sense of this. And it honestly just hasn't been good enough for me to do that. Um, I just feel like again missed opportunity. The story has potential. This character has potential, but we had like 3 months without an issue, and then it feels like we're getting one every 2 weeks now. But I don't even understand what the narrative has been. I mean, this is issue 6, right? So this is the last issue of the first volume in the trade. Like I don't even think this would make sense reading in a trade. I'm lost. I
Yeah.
don't care about the characters. It feels like such a waste. I mean, I wasn't as big of a fan of Yara Flora as you and Trevor were
Yeah.
to begin with, but I was willing to give it a try. But my God, I'm lost. I'm confused. The narrative doesn't make sense to me. The art's okay. The colors are okay. It feels a little drab. The colors have felt drab throughout the series. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but I really like when I saw Wonder Girl was on the list of digital preview copies. Like honestly, I'm like, oh my God, I really don't want to have to read that. It just feels like a chore to read because I'm lost. And maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. But yeah, I did not enjoy this.
Well, yeah. Look, this is supposed to. This is. I think this is. I agree with you. This is sad. This is very very disappointing. This is not going to read any better as a trade. This is part 6. This is issue 6. This is not. Having reread the previous 5 issues, it doesn't read any better. It's actually just equally as confounding as when you read it from beginning all 6 issues in a row. It's not very well put together, quite frankly. It's a mess. Wonder Girl, I don't know. Yara Flora, this issue, I mean, she's escaping Olympus because she left. She, you know, I mean, the crazy thing is that she gains the power. She suddenly becomes. She has the power to be Wonder Girl. She's this. She has all this power that she scares the hell out of the other 3 tribes of Amazons. So there's the Brazilian tribe, the Equiseta. There's the Themyscirans by Queen Nubia, who sends Cassie and Artemis or Cassie Sandsmark after her. And then we got the Band of Magdal Amazons. They send Artemis after her. Cassie and Artemis meet up with Yara Flor, and then just have a conversation with her. They don't even try to stop her. They don't even try to bring her in because she's supposed to be this potential threat to the other Amazons. Helen, or Hera, pardon me, the wife of Zeus, thinks that she's a threat. Hera apparently uses Eros, her son Eros. Eros accidentally pricked himself with his arrow and fell in love with Yara. He then shot the arrow into Yara, and so she fell in love with Eros. But Yara was also still in love with João, her bus driver from Brazil, who's like a stage 5 clinger, who followed her on the plane. And she's in Olympus. She is trained by the gods of Olympus, only then to realize that, well, she doesn't want to drink the liquid of ambrosia and forever be condemned to stay on Olympus. So she escapes Olympus, but she's being chased. And this issue opens up where she runs away from Olympus and somehow ends up in Tartarus, which is basically basically a Greek version of hell, where in this issue, she nonsensically, there's this giant man beast. I don't even know, he's not given a name, who squishes these 3, I don't even know what these 3 creatures are that nonsensically attack Yara for reasons which aren't explained. And there's this man beast then who tries to attack Yara. We don't know how he incapacitates her. I guess he steps on her. And then she finds herself caged, after which Eros talks to her and asks her, why did you refuse Hera? Well, he already knows why she refused Hera. I don't even know why she bothered going to Olympus. She accuses Eros of manipulating her, where obviously she was shot with the arrow. And so doesn't she know how this works? I mean, meanwhile, all this nonsense. I mean, she ends up getting attacked by this creature, and she escapes. She gets reunited with her horse Jerry. The flying horse isn't dead. How did this is so bad? Jerry the flying horse is still alive. Stupid name for a horse, a flying horse. Why don't they just call it Pegasus? It's a cool name. Why call it Jerry? Stupid name for a horse, a flying horse. But anyways, the horse isn't dead. And then she reunites with the horse, flies off, somehow she knows how to get from Tartarus back to Olympus. I don't even know. Joelle Jones also, I don't think Joelle Jones knows that Tartarus is not located on Olympus. They're in two different. They're not. Olympus is not the same as Tartarus. There's actually a bit of dialogue that suggests that Tartarus and Olympus are on the same place. In any event, it's a mess. Meanwhile, the Equiseta, the Brazilian tribe that Yara Flor is from, they want to attack Olympus because somehow they know that Yara is there. Hera then suddenly decides to tell Eros to kill Yara for reasons which are never explained. Why do they want to kill Yara? Why is she a threat? This is never explained at all. There's actually a scene here where Donna Troy and Cassie are talking to each other and they're smiling. And Cassie actually says to Donna Troy, am I crazy to be excited about what all this could mean if everything works out? And they're actually about to declare war and attack Olympus. And Cassie's excited about this? Her father is Zeus. Cassie's father is Zeus. What is she so excited about? War? They're headed for war. Why are they all smiling? Why is Donna Troy and Cassie smiling? They're going to attack Olympus. I mean, did Donna Troy know she was going to attack Olympus when she met the Equiseta tribe? Is that what Cassie was told by Queen Nubia? None of this makes any sense. This is just absolute total nonsense. This is total chaos. We're supposed to be heading into Trial of the Amazons. And now we got the Amazons attacking Olympus? How is this related to the Trial of the Amazons and to the disagreement between, if whatever that disagreement might be, between the Themyscirans, the Banner Magdal tribe, and the Equiseta Amazons? Why aren't we getting more of this? The sad part is that when I read the article on Trial of the Amazons, if it's advertised, apparently every 2 weeks, all the writers of the title, Joelle Jones, Becky Cloonan, Michael W. Conrad, Vida and Stephanie Williams, meet every 2 weeks to discuss. They're coordinating this Trial of the Amazons. I wish I could see some evidence, a little bit more evidence of coordination or a convergence of these storylines. Okay, I'm not seeing a lot. I'm seeing a little bit in the pages of Wonder Woman, which we'll get to but I'm very disappointed in this. This Wonder Girl series is not it's not up to task at all. I'm not even sure what's going on. I'm trying to piece it together, but this is a massive disappointment, a huge disappointment. This is something that will be rewritten. This is an artistic failure as well. I don't like the art. I don't like the art. I don't like the coloring. I agree with you on that. This is just a failure all around. Unfortunately, as a narrative, I think that this needs to be redone. I really do. This is something where I can see within 5 years this origin for Wonder Girl being completely redone, because they should go back to formula. What a missed opportunity to get people on board for this character. This is not. Again, I hate to say it, but this isn't good enough. This is not good enough for what is a brand new Wonder Woman. This is a massive disappointment. I look back at Artemis. When Artemis was introduced, we had an awesome 6-issue Artemis miniseries drawn by Ed, gorgeous art with gorgeous art. I mean, and this here is, I mean, the art is serviceable, but the story-wise, this is an abject disappointment. I'm going to stop talking now because I don't want to, let's just say that I think Wonder Girl fans deserve better, and we'll leave it at that. Hopefully the Trial of the Amazons will retell the story of Wonder Girl in a way that actually makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest. I shouldn't have to work so hard to try to understand what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
It's tough. And again, this is why you can't have late comics. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. Could have been paper shortage, could have been shipping delays, but it is telling that Joelle Jones hasn't been the artist on the last 3 issues.
Yeah.
So if you know that she's slow, then don't release the book until she's got, X amount of issues in the can. So anyway, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not that disappointed because I don't really care that much about the character anyway. But I agree with you. Like, this was a chance to bring on new readers with a new version of Yara Flor. The only thing I'll say, this is such a backhanded compliment. In a way, I'm kind of glad the Wonder Girl Yara Flor TV series got canceled, because if that had brought readers, if that had brought people that watched the show, oh, I want to read about Wonder Girl in the comics, and they pick this up, they may have never bothered to pick up another comic ever again. And I know that sounds kind of harsh, but
Yeah.
this is just so hard. I mean, I've been reading comics for over 40 years, and I can't understand it. How is somebody who picks this series up as their first comic ever, how are they going to understand? If I can't understand it with my knowledge of DC, how is somebody reading this as a first time comic going to understand it? So yeah, it's a bit rough. Okay, let's move on to something a little more positive here. Teen Titans, or Titans rather, United #4, incoming from writer Kevin Scott, Jose Luis on pencils, Jonas Trinidad on inks, Rex Locus on colors. We mentioned it previously when we talked about Teen Titans Academy. I don't know. For me, this feels like classic Titans, and the art's fantastic.
Oh,
I loved it. What do you think, Rocky?
I love this. This is great. Kevin Scott, man, he's hitting it out of the park. This is just classic Titans, the Teen Titans that I know and love. And well, actually a mixture of what I know and love, and also a mixture of, they obviously throw some Connor in there, and they throw some Jason Todd, and so it's obviously a little mix of the animated and the classic Teen Titans from Perez and Wolfman days, and just, gorgeous covers. I mean, a gorgeous Starfire here. I mean, kudos to the artist Jose Luis. Fantastic. Jonas Trinidad on the inks, Rex Locus on the colors. This is absolutely gorgeous. This is exactly this is Starfire at her all-time best looking. Like, just wow. And yeah, and Blackfire, of course, she's torturing Connor in her starship, and it's Blackfire who's the one who's behind all these humans developing metahuman abilities all over the planet. So the Titans have to basically, they're broken up, and they have to go all the way around the planet to try to stop all these humans from going basically crazy and losing control of their Titan-like powers. And just the machinations of Blackfire, the way she's toying with of Connor is great. Lady Vic we end up discovering that Lady Vic is actually was hired by this Mr. Spock character to essentially steal to she was Lady Vic was hired to take out to kill the scientist that was responsible for creating the metahumans, to creating the gene or creating the wave that creates metahumans. And it's Nightwing himself who creates a counter wave to sort of shut down the effect that's creating all these various humans from getting powers. But Blackfire interferes with that. Meanwhile, the confrontation between Starfire and Lady Vic is great. Lady Vic is so sexy. Starfire is sexy. When you got the Purian fanboy in me loves this. We got Lady Vic and Starfire both looking fantastic. Good grief. It looks really good. I love the fight scenes here. I love this is very, very well done. And I mean, Jose Luis, I mean, his art is just fantastic. Like, absolutely fantastic. I just, wow. Actually, man, it's amazing the difference that art can make. Because this, in terms of story-wise, I mean, so much, the art's so fantastic. And the plot moves, we get, Blackfire ends up attacking the Titans. She's responsible for all these humans developing metahuman abilities across the globe. All these people are getting powers, and meanwhile, we got great team ups as the Titans spread out to try to deal with all that's going on around the globe. And this is just feel good comics, man. This is a must read if you're a Titans fan. It's a must buy for me. I just, again, I talked before about a shit-eating grin on my face. This is a visually, this is a beautiful spectacle. Sexy women, gorgeous women, great action. I mean, my God, Blackfire, Starfire, and Lady Vic at their finest. I'm telling you, this is great stuff. Great cliffhanger stuff. Looks like there's an explosion. Is Starfire dead? Is Lady Vic dead? Probably not, but it's, it's well done. Blackfire, great double page spread with Nightwing on his motorcycle as Blackfire's forces attack. This is really just very well done, and this is exactly the type of this reminds me so much, just a wonderful callback to the classic Titan days for me, and a little bit of the animated of the animated series as well, as the some a modern day take with Jason Todd being included, and Connor as well. Very well done, and Donna Troy kicking ass. And then to top it off at the end, we got a new version of a Blackfire controlled Connor looking kick ass in a brand new outfit, a brand new suit. I'm loving this. I don't know. I just sat back and enjoyed this. This is easily my top two for the week. One of my favorites for the week. What do you feel about it?
Yeah, I loved it. I'm right there with you. Like, I got such a, Superboy Prime vibe from that image that we have. If you're watching us on YouTube, that image of the Connell or Connor Kent, whichever you prefer. But Blackfire's controlling him, and he's got a little bit of an armor on, and it just felt like very Superboy Prime, who's one of my favorite DC characters. Yeah, I love it. And I give a lot of credit to the art as well. I mean, Jose Luis it's spectacle, it's big giant explosions, it's action, it's kinetic, it's beautiful. And I also give a lot of credit to Rex Locust, the color artist, who does an incredible job with pretty primary colors, which, as I always say, you get into those primary colors and it makes it feel more kind of classic superheroic comics. Now, it doesn't say this again, it doesn't say it's Black Label, doesn't say it's necessarily out of continuity. But here's the thing, it could be out of continuity, but it doesn't have to be. There's no reference to other stuff. This just is what it is. Like, if somebody wanted to read a DC comic right now, I would be hard pressed not to say, somebody who's unfamiliar with DC comics, I would be hard pressed not to say, read this, right? Like, hey, maybe I'd give them Nice House on the Lake if they were into horror or something more sophisticated. But if they wanted to read superhero stuff, man, I right now off the top of my head, I can't think of something more appropriate to give somebody where they don't need to know anything. They don't need to know anything about Future State
Yep.
or what Joshua Williamson's doing in Infinite Frontier or what's going on in the Sheridan verse or what just happened in Fear State. They don't have to know any of that stuff. They can just pick this up and read it for what it is. It's the Teen Titans. They're battling against Blackfire. They're battling against Lady Vic. The art is gorgeous and fantastic. This is a perfect example of what can be done with a great narrative and great art. Now, is this the most like sophisticated, complicated, interpersonal stories of the Teen Titans or the Titans? No, it's not. It doesn't even rise to the level of the interaction that we had back in the classic Wolfman Perez days. Um, but it doesn't need to. It's not trying to be that. Kevin Scott is just trying to give us this rip roaring action filled story about the Teen Titans, and there are some interactions and there are some kind of in jokes, and that's kind of, it's a very surface level in terms of interaction between characters, but doesn't mean they couldn't build on it, in the next story arc or even in the next issue. So give a lot of credit to Kevin Scott, give a lot of credit to Jose Luis. This creative team is clearly gelling, and honestly, I hope this continues. I mean, I know it's a 7-issue mini, but I hope that they get another volume.
I
And
agree.
I actually I want to see that. I mean, Kevin Scott has shown a good handle of pacing and of what's possible in the pages of a comic
Mhm.
in terms of action. I trust him enough based on the first 4 issues that he could probably give us a second volume of Titans United where it is more about the personal interactions. Maybe instead of a big over the top villain like Blackfire, you give us somebody who's a little more of a mystery villain, or a little more muted, or a little more behind the scenes,
Yeah.
or is a villain that's a little more insidious, where the Titans are worried about, betrayal within the ranks, sort of like a Judas contract sort of thing,
Yeah.
where we could get a little more characterization and a little more dynamic layering between the characters.
He knows these characters. He knows these
Yeah,
characters very well.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he clearly loves these characters. He clearly
Yes.
uh, knows the classic eras of them, because he plays off that, especially when it comes to the relationships between or the interactions between like Nightwing and Starfire, or Beast Boy, and basically anybody. How he's kind of the butt of the jokes. And yeah, the fact that he can add in Red Hood, who wasn't originally part of that classic era with Wolfman and Perez. Yeah, this is a fantastic story. So yeah, it's up there as well. I'm curious what your other book that might rival this will be, but I guess we'll find out as we move along. Okay, let's. Speaking of moving along, let's go ahead and do that now with Wonder Woman number 782. As we mentioned earlier when we talked about Batgirls, Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan are the writers on this. Marcio Takara is the artist. Tamra Bonvillain does the colors. Pat Brosso on letters. Wasn't a big fan of the art. I didn't think it was as clean as I've seen Takara's art before, but it was okay. I feel like Bonvillain's colors very much suited the line work, so I didn't have a problem there. Um, it's so tough, because what are we, like 11 issues into the Cloonan Conrad run?
Yeah.
I want it to be good. I want to like it, but I still feel like I don't have an identity for who their Wonder Woman is. There's so much going on in their story that pulls the focus away from Diana in a way that I
Yeah.
still don't feel like I know who Wonder Woman is to them, who Diana Prince is to them. Now, whether it was jumping from realm to realm to realm, mythological realm to mythological realm, whether it's what's Diana's relationship with Etta Candy right now, what's her relationship with Steve Trevor, what's her relationship with Deadman, who are these clones, what's Dr. Psycho up to? It feels so busy, and I kind of feel like the issue we got a couple of issues ago, I think it was 780, when Diana went back to Themyscira and got a chance to spend time with her mother. That was the chance, like, show us who Diana is to you, but we didn't even get it in that issue. So I'm sort of struggling with tone of what this is supposed to be. I don't feel like I know who Wonder Woman is to them, and so I have no touchstone. I have no point of view. I have no way, no relatable way into the story. Um, and they have some interesting ideas, and I love that they seem to want to build a rogues gallery for Wonder Woman, which I think she sorely needs. Um, so there's potential here, but I don't know. It's like they're missing that they're missing that one issue that brings it all together for me, where I say, yes, okay, now I know who Wonder Woman is to you as the writer, so now I can find my way into the story. Because right now I just feel like it's sort of going by the numbers, and I'm just reading it to read it, and there's no, again, to go back to I Am Batman, why do I care? Why do I care about this version of Diana? There's nothing there for me to grab onto yet. And it just feels like 11 issues in, I should know that by now. Um,
Yeah.
even if it's that Diana doesn't know who she is and she's searching for her identity, having come back from the dead, basically. And if that's what it is, then great. But for me at least, I haven't sensed that, and that's where the disconnect is. So again, it's another one of these DC books. I want to like it more than I do, but and there are some cool ideas, but it's just not quite there for me. So I don't know. What do you think, Rocky?
I yeah, I agree. I would rather have Wonder Woman still trying to find her way back to Earth and have her explore the multiverse than what we're getting here.
As
Wonder
much as
Woman.
we thought that was dragged out, you'd rather
Well,
go
no,
back
no,
to
no,
that?
no. I know. I agree with you. It was dragged out, but at least we can explore the multiverse and have a little bit of fun and go to the various Earths and do something else. This with these cheap copies and like you said, I mean, all these disparate plot points, they don't seem connected, and I really actually don't even think they're probably going to be connected at the end, but they really don't seem connected now, and not in a good way. I'm not. I'm just sort of. I'm shaking my head. This Doctor Psycho, Cisco or whatever, Doctor Psycho. She. I don't like the fact that she's Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman. So much of this comic is her having a conversation with Dead Man. Like pages of just a conversation. I mean, good God, just talking heads and talking heads. A conversation talking about how Dr. Psycho is preaching his poisonous ideology. What ideology is that, Wonder Woman? We haven't been told what this poisonous ideology is. Can I assume it's misogyny of some kind? Probably, but it's not really detailed, but it's a poisonous ideology. Okay, cliche, whatever. So then, all right, then they're actually flying to Iceland because remember, Wonder Woman really, it's a priority to Wonder Woman having finally got back to Earth. Her first priority isn't to, look for the lurking threat that's going to destroy the multiverse, i.e., Darkseid or some other threat. No, her number one priority is the sword that the guy she was screwing in all when she was trying to get back to Earth, Siegfried. He gave her a sword. She wants to return the sword, Siegfried's sword, to Siegfried's gravestone, to his gravesite. So that's what they do in this issue. They go all the way to Iceland with Dead Man. They return the sword. They return the sword to this to this and in Sweden, in Valsgard Gervalt, Sweden, they return the sword, and apparently all that's hinted at is, Dead Man tells Wonder Woman that Siegfried died a violent death protecting innocence and fighting for freedom. Now, what would be the point of wasting an entire issue telling us this? I'm thinking, if I'm guessing, could it be that sometime in the past, when Siegfried died thousands of years ago, is Siegfried's death related to Amazonian history? Did he die in defense of some Amazonian ideal that might lead in a trial of the Amazons? I'm trying to give Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Connor the benefit of the doubt here that this is actually relevant to the story that we're going to be getting. Why is this plot point so important that you've wasted 2 issues on returning a sword to a dead lover that's been dead for thousands of years? That Wonder Woman's instinct, her wisdom of Athena, made her feel that she needed to return the sword. Maybe that's it. Meanwhile, we have this, Image Maker, this new villainous tease called Image Maker on the last page, and more clones of Wonder Woman show up that attack the plane they were on. And this come to Image Maker, Master of Mirror World. What does this have to do? I mean, if you're going to be setting up Trial of the Amazons, why not do that? I'm not sure who this Image Maker is, but I don't really find it all that interesting. But I guess we'll see where it's going to take us. Dr. Psycho, I really don't care about Dr. Psycho. I don't care what he's doing or who he's summoning. I'm just not interested in that. I mean, like you said, the tone of this is way off. It's even Steve Trevor. We don't even, everything is off about this. It's just, I find it very unsatisfying. By far the best of this comic was the backup. Part 2, What Lies Beneath, Trial of the Amazons. This was much better because we get Queen Atalanta returning to the Bana Migdal tribe. Queen Atalanta is a joint queen. Both her and Queen Faruka II, they're both of them are queen. They're like joint monarchs of the Bana Migdal tribe. Queen Atalanta was last seen in Steve Orlando's Wonder Woman run. and she basically helped defeat sort of like a Shadow King. Long story, but in any event, Queen Atalanta has returned, and she's got some concerns. It's clear that Queen Atalanta and Queen Faruka II have perhaps, it's hinted that they maybe disagree or have some disagreement as to how to recruit Amazons into the Banner McDowell tribe. Queen Atalanta expresses concerns that the human females that they tried to recruit, some of them ended up being criminals in part one, and they ended up being banished and not being accepted into the tribe. And Queen Faruka says something very interesting here, and this is going to hint at the dissension between the Amazons, I believe, leading into Trial of the Amazons. Queen Faruka says, women are no less dangerous than men, and we learned that just by being and we learned that just being one did not equal worthiness. A woman must prove her mettle to the sisterhood. In other words, the Banner McDowell tribe do not accept just any women. You got to prove yourself. You have to be worthy. Women are just as flawed as men. I like that idea. We're seeing elements of that even in a completely different story in Historia by Kelly Sue DeConnick, but that's unrelated. But I like we're getting different ideas here. We're getting hints of what the Themysciran Amazons believe, and in this case, the Banner McDowell tribe, they're located in the desert. So where Themyscira is a paradise, the Banner McDowell tribe, the Queen Atalanta is at, and Queen Faruka, it's actually in the desert. Like, think of Iraq, modern day Iraq. That's where the Banner McDowell tribe is, and they're jealous. They're kind of pissed off that Amazons, Wonder Woman, Queen Nubia gets this beautiful island paradise, and they're stuck on a desert, on a shit desert in basically modern day Iraq. And of course, they don't even have it as good as Equisita, the Brazilian Amazons. And so you can kind of see that, in the backup here, they're attacked by a beast that escaped from Doom's Doorway, and Doom's Doorway is located on Themyscira. So they're wondering what the hell is going on. Maybe they're suspecting that the Themysciran Amazons sent a beast to attack them. Meanwhile, the Equisita are Amazons in the pages of Wonder Girl are attacking Mount Olympus, because that's where they think Yara Flor is being held captive by Hera. So you can kind of see where all this is going. We know that there's this other new tribe that are claiming the land of Themyscira. We saw that in the Wonder Woman annual we reviewed last week. So I really am enjoying this lead up to Trial of the Amazons. I just wish that the story in Wonder Girl, I wish that the story in the main story of Wonder Woman that Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad were telling were leading into it as well. But it doesn't seem to be happening. But at least, thank God, we got this back up here that's better. And I like Nubia and the Amazons. I do like what Vita Ayala and Stephanie Williams are doing in that series. That's much better handled and much better written. And that is the best Amazon written title so far. So yeah, I don't like the Wonder Woman story, the main story, but I love the backup.
Yeah, I agree. At least one of them feels like it's heading somewhere.
Yeah.
The other one, and one thing I didn't mention, and I don't think you mentioned it either. We both mentioned Steve Trevor, but give Cloonan and Conrad credit. Okay, Wonder Woman comes back to life. She's going to reach out to Steve Trevor. There's got to be something with that relationship, but either they aren't ready to tell us the story of that relationship, or they don't know what they're going to do with it. So what do they choose to do? Well, again, I give them credit for at least acknowledging, but they have them call each other on cell phones, and then it's always a poor signal. It's always a poor connection, and they can never actually have a live conversation with each other. Like that sort of sums up their run so far to this point. It's a bad connection on the phone. So yeah, again, I echo what Rocky says about the backup. At least that feels like it's leading into something, and hopefully the Trial of the Amazons is going to be something that's really good. And despite the fact that Wonder Woman Historia is Black Label and doesn't technically fit into this universe, I love the fact, like Rocky said, about addressing the fact that just because you're a woman doesn't automatically mean that you're good, which is so interesting in context of what we just got last week with Wonder Woman Historia. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's move on. Next book we're going to talk about is The Joker number 10. This is from Matthew Rosenberg and James Tynan, Francisco Francavilla on art and colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. This is another one of those issues that's complete flashback with the Francisco Francavilla art, flashing back to the relationship between James Gordon and the Joker. So, what'd you think of this one, Rocky?
I wish it wasn't. I wish it was less of a flashback here. I'm starting to. I was cutting Tinian a lot of slack in terms of always having a lot of focus on Jim Gordon here, and I don't mind it because it is a really great Jim Gordon story, and it is the Joker does play a role in it, but he this is definitely. I'm starting to come around to the criticism that this is this should be more of a Joker story. I mean, this focus is it's starting to they shouldn't. I'm starting to almost not. I haven't changed my mind yet. I like the story, but I wish there was more Joker here. Now this issue, strangely enough, it's not just Jim Gordon who's obsessed with the Joker. It's James Gordon Jr. It's Jim Gordon's son is obsessed with the Joker. His basically the flashback is James Gordon's ex-wife, whose name is Barbara, basically drops off their son, saying, "You gotta take care of James Jr. because I can't control him anymore. James, my new husband is terrified of our son, so you got to take him." So he takes his son, and he discovers that his own son is obsessed with the Joker, and he finds his son going through his Joker files because Jim Gordon, foolishly brings his police files home, and that includes the Joker, and his own son brings all this home, and what's actually very interesting here is this is actually a great Batman story that, when we got that story about when there was that 6-issue series of The Batman Who Laughs where James Gordon Jr. and James Gordon took on the Batman Who Laughs, and the Batman Who Laughs was using Jim Gordon Jr. against Jim Gordon, and that all that played out. That was kind of a good series. It was I think it was one of the better written stories involving the Batman Who Laughs. But the history of James Gordon Jr., this is a really good origin for him. And this was very well done. And the way that Batman, because Batman cares for Jim Gordon, Commissioner Gordon, Batman figures out that young James Gordon is actually screwed up. He needs some therapy. And rather than basically reporting him and letting the police find evidence that would point to James Gordon's son, he basically gives the evidence to Commissioner, to Gordon, and saying, "Look, your son needs help. Get him help. And that's kind of where things are left. And it really shows just how tight the relationship is between Batman and James Gordon, because despite the fact that James is a pretty screwed up young man here, the reality is that Batman doesn't think all hope is lost, and it's clear that even with a young Renee Montoya, I mean, a lot of great callbacks here I guess I keep calling him Commissioner Gordon. I guess this would be Captain Gordon in his younger days, but it's obvious that young James Gordon sort of sets up this guy. He dresses up, he puts makeup on. Young James Gordon Jr. steals his sister's makeup and puts a Joker lipstick on his face, and he basically sets up this other guy to make himself look like the victim. And it's Batman, of course, sees through it, and he tells Gordon about it. And this particular issue is called Broken Home, Broken Heart, and it really does, it lays the foundation of it. It drives home the fact as to why it wasn't just Barbara Gordon whose life was impacted by the Joker, but James Gordon Jr. was obsessed with the Joker. So it's Tinian wrote this chapter, I know, to reinforce the fact that this is another reason why Commissioner Gordon, former Commissioner Gordon, hates the Joker. The Joker really is a central part of the dysfunction that exists in former Commissioner Gordon's life, between what he did with Barbara Gordon by crippling her, making her Oracle, and by contributing to the psychopathy of his son, James Jr. And in that respect, it works. Where it doesn't work is that it doesn't really move the narrative forward with respect to the actual central story involving the modern day Joker coming out of Arkham Asylum Day. But in any event, what do you think of it, Jace?
I have mixed feelings about this one. Um, I feel like each of these Francesco Francavilla interludes that we have, where Tynan is joined by Matthew Rosenberg, they're flashbacks. I appreciate that Francavilla comes in and his art is very different. He does his own colors, very different. They'll stand out in a collected edition. But I feel like each time we've had them, they've been less impactful. Like the first one was the one that I think stood out, and the next one was, yeah, okay, you're giving the regular artist a break, I guess. You're giving us more context, but each subsequent interlude has felt like the context is less and less needed, and this felt like it wasn't needed at all. Like at this point, who that reads Batman hasn't read Killing Joke? So what does this really add? I feel like we're already completely in with the angst and the sort of turmoil that Jim Gordon feels. We certainly got it thrown right in our face a couple of issues ago when Gordon was talking to Bane's clone daughter, Vengeance, and Gordon, in his own words, it was a fantastic line from Tynan, where Gordon was saying he realized he was feeling guilty. He was basically saying, I don't have the guts to go and kill the Joker myself. You're my gun, and I'm pointing you at the Joker. So we have everything we need to know. Like, you're no longer adding context when you're doing these Francavilla issues. You're sort of beating a dead horse. And I really did not care for the pinks and oranges and yellows of the coloring. I didn't understand it. That bright coloring that Francavilla gives us, I didn't get it at all. Like, if you're trying to show us that, okay, this was the beginning of the end for James Jr. and how he started down the path of becoming a serial killer, mental health issues, blah, 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 and how that affected Jim Gordon. Okay, I guess there's some worth there, but why are you giving me pink backgrounds and orange and yellow? Why are you giving me these bright colors? Like, it didn't make any sense. So, I've said from the beginning that as much as Francavilla is a fantastic artist, I never felt like he was the right choice for this Joker series, and this was the worst yet in terms of artwork. Like, I just didn't understand the color choices that he made. So for me, unfortunately, I just didn't care for this issue. I you know
Yeah,
I
and
I
I think this is probably the one issue where I don't even think there was a single page with the Joker on it, other than the
yeah
cover. I mean, that this was this is what I mean. Like, you and I have been fairly staunch defenders of this series in terms of despite the fact that it doesn't have it has more Commissioner Gordon than the Joker. we've been very forgiving of that because the quality of the narrative, I think, has been generally pretty high. But I will admit that it's starting to wear thin a little bit. So Tinian is sort of pushing the boundaries here of, you know,
Yeah,
let's
it
get
didn't.
back into the Joker narrative here.
Yeah, it didn't even. That's my point. It didn't even feel like I've loved the fact that the whole Joker title has been really a Jim Gordon title. This wasn't even a good Jim Gordon story. It just wasn't. The narrative wasn't strong, and I didn't. I as much as it's the visual storytelling is as strong as Francavilla ever does. The color work for me really brought it down. So yeah, wasn't a fan. Um, if you're not a fan of the Francavilla issues, you could skip this completely. So, um, and the backup we've talked about how the punchline backup has run far too long. Nothing happens in the backup here. Um, Kelly's there. Supposedly she's a witness. She knew Punchline when Punchline was in high school. Supposedly she's going to have some kind of damning testimony at Punchline's trial. And they're prepping her, and that's basically it. Felt like a throwaway in terms of the backup. So yeah,
Yeah.
anything to add there, Rocky?
Yeah, this was unfortunately, it just sort of confirms the failure of the punchline potential and the failure of this backup. This has been the punchline backup story has just not been very good. I'm not buying it. It never worked. And I think the potential for Punchline to be like a social media powerhouse, a social, wielding her evil or manipulative influence on social media, it failed. It didn't work. Um, and frankly, why isn't Punchline in the story more? I mean, if when you think about it, this entire Punchline backup, we learned almost nothing about Punchline. We didn't learn anything about Punchline. We learned a little bit about her history. That was it. Everything was about Bluebird and about an infiltration of infiltrating the prison to try to what? To basically rescue this witness. But it wasn't really about Punchline. That's the sad part. It was about I don't care about Bluebird. I don't care about Leslie Tompkins, and I don't care about this witness. I wanted to know something about Punchline, and we don't even learn much about Punchline even through this witness, other than the fact that Punchline just wants to kill this witness who isn't killed. And then, like, why do we care about? I guess I don't even know who the other two characters are. The two, I don't know. I don't know. Punchline's, I don't know. Bluebird's brother wants to have a relationship with the guy at the member of the Royal Flush Gang. Why is this relevant? Why is this important? I'm just I'm just not feeling it. This was just an unfocused narrative that forgot. I think they actually forgot that this was supposed to be a Punchline backup. Don't call it a Punchline backup if it's a Bluebird backup, which is really what this was. Because this wasn't a Punchline backup. She was just sort of like the villain of the piece. And in many ways, you could almost say it has something in common in this particular issue with the Joker itself, because the Joker arguably in this issue was overshadowed by Commissioner Gordon, and Punchline in the backup has been overshadowed by Bluebird. And in any event, it's a miss for me.
Yep, agreed. Okay, up next, the last book we're going to talk about in detail. It's Batman Urban Legends number 10. This is, so even though we're not talking about Tis the Season to Be Freezing, which is a holiday special, this is sort of a pseudo holiday special. We get 4 stories here, and they're all set during Christmas time. So Tim Drake and A Carol of Bats from Megan Fitzmartin. Alberto Albuquerque Jimenez is the artist. Nick Filardi does colors. Pat Broso on letters. Tweedledee and Tweedledum and Down the Rabbit Hole, Part 2 of 2 from writer Sam Johns. Carl Mostert is the artist. David Barron on colors. Tom Napolitano on letters. Azrael and Dark Knight of the Souls, Part 3 of 3 from Dan Waters. Nicola Samegia is the artist. He's the one that did the black and white art in Future State Gotham. So this is exactly what I was talking about, where his art looks much better colored. And it's colored by Yvonne Placencia in this particular story, with Ariana Mayer on. And then the last story is Nightwing and Bats of Christmas Past. Tinny Howard is the writer. Christian Duce is the artist. Sarah Stern on colors, and Becca Carey on letters. The first story was okay. It felt a little forced, with Tim Drake trying to make Bruce Wayne happy. Like, have you met Bruce Wayne, Tim Drake? So that's why it felt sort of forced. But I always give Megan Fitzmartin a lot of credit. She's been written a lot of Tim Drake stories lately. She clearly loves the character. So sending Tim Drake out to talk to Nightwing about how to make Bruce Wayne happy, and in the end, Tim Drake accepts the fact that you're never going to make Bruce Wayne happy. You just do the best you can. So it was okay. I don't think it quite reached the level of a feel good story that she was hoping that it would. But we did get a little blurb. Tim Drake and a Carol of Bats, all the credits, and Happy New Year, especially from all the Tim Drake fans who will see him more in 2022. The second story, again, part 2, Tweedledee Tweedledum from Sam Johns. Very much a commentary on how horrible the healthcare system is in the United States, with Tweedledee basically having to agree to let Batman send Tweedledum to Belle Rev prison, where they'll become part of the Suicide Squad, so that Tweedledee can be healed, basically, from the Mad Hatter mind control that has affected his brain and caused brain damage from him being exposed to it for so long. So the as much as it's over the top commentary on our healthcare system, which I do appreciate because I think our healthcare system is just as jacked as the next average American. The real highlight for that story is the Carl Mostert art. Azrael Dark Knight of the Soul finale. It's okay, based on the end of the story. We're going to see a lot more of Azrael in the next year. Also, it says Azrael's journey continues in the pages of Arkham City, and in 2022, it's his 30th anniversary. So I fully expect there to be at least an Azrael miniseries at some point. But yeah, again, Nicola's art looks much better when it's colored. We're getting the 30th anniversary of Azrael. It's time to sort of evolve the character and move him beyond this tied to religion zealotness that he has. It's old, it's tired, it's boring, it's not interesting. He's visually a very interesting character, and I wish they'd sort of leave the religious crap in the back, but in the past. But I sort of feel like nobody knows what to do with him. There's other ways to make him interesting than the religious stuff. So I don't know. This was a forgettable story at the end of the day, all about his ties to religion and his zealousness. So the last story, by far the best of the three, from Tinny Howard. It's basically a Nightwing story where Nightwing plays the role of Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So that one was a lot of fun, and I thought the Christian Doucet art serviced the story very, very well. So to me, that was the most Christmassy of all the Christmas stories here. And I don't think I need to go into many details. We all know the story of Christmas, the Christmas Carol rather. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it felt like a really long story too, which I appreciated. But having Stephanie Brown as one of the spirits, I could have probably done without. I thought Cassandra Cain was an inspired choice for the Ghost of Christmas Future, and how it's so sort of despondent's not the word, but not, I don't know, so dreary, like the future in A Christmas Carol. It's so bleak, right? So I thought Cassandra Cain and kind of the edge that she has was the perfect choice. I did think that it was interesting to have Damien as the choice for Christmas Past. I guess maybe because it ties into when Dick Grayson was Batman and Damien was his Robin. So I guess that's why they chose that. But I don't know. To me, Damien would have, he's got that edge too. So he would have been more like the bleakness of the future. Would have thought somebody a little more upbeat like Tim Drake or maybe Barbara Gordon. I don't know. But anyway, it was my favorite of the four. I thought it was really solid and a lot of fun. So What do you think of these 4 stories, Rocky?
Well, I like the. I actually, I found myself, oddly enough, I actually found myself more intrigued with Down the Rabbit Hole is my favorite story with Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Because the funny thing is about that is that I know I criticized that story in the last Batman Urban Legends, but I actually kind of, I liked Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and I liked the way it kind of resolved itself with Batman and getting Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I mean, it was kind of predictable. Like we predicted last issue. We said, yeah, Batman's going to show up and get him the treatment. And now, if I had one criticism of it, though, it seemed to me to be a little bit absurd. I mean, the reasoning that Batman gave was he's going to send Tweedledum into. They're going to have to. Batman basically told him, well, even though you're innocent, even though you didn't really do anything wrong, if you plead guilty, you'll have to plead guilty. You're going to have either. You wait 6 weeks and your brother will die, or you plead guilty and you both got to go to prison for the rest of your life in a Belle Reve prison. That's run by Amanda Waller. I mean, it seemed the reasoning that Batman gave, as if there was no other way to save, Tweedledum's life. I just thought, come on, like, you're Batman, you'd find a way. But in any event, it felt really forced just to get Tweedledee and Tweedledum into Belle Reve, which is cool because, hey, I think I actually would love to see Tweedledee and Tweedledum be members of the Suicide Squad. I think that would be kind of funny. So I'm kind of glad that that's how it ended up there. I find it interesting that Mad Hatter said something interesting at the end of it. He's got a surprise up his sleeve at the bottom of that rabbit hole. So I have a feeling that that Mad Hatter's got something up his sleeve, maybe in the mind of Tweedledee, that he's gonna play a role in Suicide Squad at some point in the future. So I like what writer Sam Johns did there.
Could they show up in War for Earth 3?
Yeah, they could. Yeah, actually, yeah. You never know. They might very well do that. I'm actually the Nightwing story written by Tini Howard. Actually, before I talk about that, I want to talk about the Azrael story written by Dan Waters' Dark Knight of the Soul. You note that, what we talked about, bear in mind who the artist is. Nicola Sesmazida. It's the same artist that did Future State Gotham.
Yeah, in black and white.
Except it's colored.
Yeah, and it's so much better.
And it's way better. It's his art. I think this does his art better justice because it's actually, as a credit to Nicola's Casamida's art or whatever, the Placencia's colors do just a bang up job of making it look really good. And it's right. You get it. You feel like you're in that time of the Templar Knights, and we meet a new character. A new character called the Poor Fellow, who's basically an ancestor of the Templar Knights, whose role and mission it is to destroy the Lazarus pits, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, apparently there's been a descendants of Templar Knights whose sole mission is to destroy the Lazarus pits, and I kind of like that because we as we know. There's Lazarus resin, Lazarus pills, Lazarus pits is pretty much everywhere. So I like the idea of this Poor Fellow whose sole purpose it is to destroy the Lazarus pits, because that this character has her work cut out for her. So I kind of like that in terms of what that might mean moving forward. And the Tim Drake story, a Carol of Bats, I thought it was Batman having, I didn't buy it. I'm sorry. I just don't see Batman hugging an average citizen in the streets of Gotham after Fear State. Given the guy who's leading the mob, Batman's going to walk up to him and give him a hug. I didn't buy it, but Megan Fitzpatrick, it's a feel good story. I get it. For those who love Bernard, Tim and Bernard, Bernard's very understanding. So Batman now officially knows that Tim is, I guess, bisexual, and that he has a relationship with Bernard, and Batman's happy for him, and Batman's happy and he feels good. And even though he never shaved, Batman still feels good, and Batman's touchy-feely in this issue, and he hugs him, so It's all nice and everything. It's a nice touchy-feely all around. But it's not. um, Batman calls Tim Drake his son. I am happy because you're my son. He actually said that. This is a very different Batman, I guess. But this is you don't see the Batman of the '70s never said this. This is not your Frank Miller's Batman by any stretch. But it's definitely a down to earth, more Batman in tune with his feelings in these stories. But yeah, I'm actually pleased with Teenie Howard's Nightwing story with the Ghosts of Christmas Past present. Teenie Howard is going to be writing the new writer on Catwoman, so I'm really hoping that she's gonna. I'm pleased with her writing on Nightwing. Hopefully, she'll display the same sense of familiarity with the character of Selena Kyle as she did with Dick Grayson.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Okay, well, that does it for all the books that we're going to talk about in detail, everybody. There are a few other regular issues. Like I said, the "'Tis the Season to Be Freezing" #1 we'll be doing a spotlight on for the 12 days of the comic source. There's also Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries #9 that came out this week. There's Harley Quinn, the animated series, the Eat, Bang, Kill tour #4. Also, Batman: The Adventures Continue Season 2. That's up to #7. And then as far as collected editions, there's a couple of hardcovers. We have Nightwing Volume 1, Leaping into the Light. That's the Tom Taylor, Bruno Redondo Volume 1. That hardcover is out, as well as the Strange Adventures hardcover from writer Tom King with art by Mitch Gerrits and Evan Doc Shaner. Also, the Rorschach hardcover, also written by Tom King with incredible art by Jorge Fornes. There's also the Harley Quinn Volume 1, No Good Deed hardcover from Stephanie Phillips with art by Riley Rosmo. And then in softcover, trade paperback, Wonder Woman Volume 1, Afterworlds trade paperback we were just talking about from the writers Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad. So a lot of Tom King. Definitely recommend the hardcover of Nightwing. Strange Adventures was amazing. Rorschach was amazing. And speaking of Tom King, he'll be on the show soon for the 12 Days in the Comic Source. He always likes to come on during the holiday season. And he's got some creator-owned books coming up. We're going to talk about Strange Adventures. We're going to talk about Rorschach. So,
and Supergirl. Ask him about Supergirl.
And we'll talk about
Loving Supergirl.
Yep, that's coming out as well. And he's got a new project with his longtime collaborator, Mitch Gerrits, which obviously he won't be able to tell us anything about whatsoever. But I'll bring it up anyway.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget we have 12 days of Spawnmas.
That's right.
Where Rocky's gonna join me for at least some of the episodes. We're gonna cover the first 12 issues of Spawn, heading into a project for the new year. And the last thing that we want to mention as we're closing out here is the incredibly bittersweet news from George Perez, who announced last week on social media that he has cancer that's inoperable, and he has anywhere from 6 months to a year to live, according to what the doctors are telling him. Maybe he could prolong that with cancer treatment, but based on his experience with other people who've dealt with pancreatic cancer, he's chosen not to, take that treatment because it's going to affect his quality of life, and he doesn't want to spend those last 6 months to a year going to doctor's appointments and feeling sick from the chemo and the radiation and whatnot. So, more power to him. The reason it's bittersweet, obviously, is because we're losing a living legend. You cannot overstate the impact this man has had on comics. But even beyond that, I've had the pleasure of meeting George several times, and forget about his talent as a comic book artist or as a comic creator or storyteller. He is one of the kindest human beings I've ever met in my entire life. Humble, grateful for his career and his fans. Just absolutely incredible. The world will be a poorer place for not having George Perez in it, regardless of his work in comics or his art. He is just an incredible human being. He's a bright, shining light. I've never talked to him and not walked away without a big smile on my face. He's just such a nice person. And so, the positive is that we know George chose to share this with all of us, all comic fans and all of his fans. So we have time to tell him how much we appreciate how he shared his art with us, how much we appreciate who he is as a person. So there's a link in the show notes where you can go, and he established a new Facebook page where you can go and leave comments. I encourage everybody to go and thank him and tell him what his artwork has meant to you over the years. And there's a chance we'll have him on the show. I mean, obviously he's getting a lot of requests for interviews and whatnot, and we want him to spend these last months and hopefully a year of his time with his family and his loved ones. So we certainly don't want to encroach on that, but if possible, if he's open to coming on the show and talking about his career and whatnot, we'll certainly let you know if we can make that happen. So I mean, for me, I probably first learned his name. I'm sure I'd seen his art previous, but when I really knew his name and realized what an incredible artist he was Crisis on Infinite Earths, where I was just jaw on the floor with what this guy could do, with emotion, with character acting, and with tons and tons and tons of characters. And then, later in life, getting a chance to meet him. It literally took my breath away when I saw the message that he shared. It's just not something you would ever wish for anybody, and certainly not him. Again, bittersweet. Link in the show notes. Go check out the Facebook page. Leave a note. Like I said, he reads. He might not necessarily respond to all of the comments left there, but he is reading all of them. So, anything to add, Rocky?
George Perez to me was, having started collecting comics in around 1976. He was, I now know that the artist that I first became familiar with was primarily Kurt Swan, but I gotta admit that the first superstar artist was George Perez with New Teen Titans. He my first introduction to a superstar artist. I mean, George Perez was the guy who you wanted every comic book you bought to be drawn by George Perez. That's what I wanted. I mean, that was just it. I mean, he was that good an artist, and he was just, he was amazing, and he was absolutely amazing. And to this day, nobody can draw so many people to match, like in one scene, his JLA versus Avengers, his spread of that many characters. Kurt Busiek would tell stories about the JLA versus Avengers where he said, well, I want to have like 30 or 40 characters, and George Perez would he'd draw like an extra 15. I mean, he always exceeded expectations. He blew people away. It was unbelievable. So much to say. I'm going to be doing my own retrospective on him. And also, let me just say the one thing, and I think I said this to you before too, is that, this man's still around. He's awesome. He's gonna go out flying high. He wants to go out meeting his fans. He wants to go out hugging people, sharing his love, giving the love back to us that we've shown him over the years, over the decades. The guy's a legend, and stand-up guy, and I intend to love the shit and appreciate his work and reread it. I got my omnibus. I got my absolute edition of Crisis. I mean, that thing's beautiful. I've got my New Teen Titans. I got so much George Perez that I can appreciate. And it's tragic news, but man, the guy's a legend.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's the thing when we talk about George Perez. I mean, his art was around for so long, right? Like from the time I started reading comics, and without realizing it, there's so many issues of Avengers, like in the low 200s, that he drew that I read and really enjoyed, and didn't realize till years later, why did I enjoy those issues so much? Oh, because George Perez was the art. Because again, I didn't really know his style and put the style to the name until Crisis on Infinite Earth. But you're right. I mean, I don't think that his level of ability when it comes to drawing giant scenes with tons of characters will ever be equaled. Not with the way people draw these days, like that's the thing. Like he came up at a time where you were the artist on a book and you did that book every month and you did not take time off. Now it's news when an artist does 10 of the 12 issues for a year, you know,
Yeah.
and uh, and 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 they are, and part of it is the fact that they do put more detail in the art now than they used to. But Perez was doing that back then. He was the one guy that was putting that level of detail in back then.
Yeah.
Like when you look at just tons and tons of characters and drawing like every strand of hair, Starfire's hair, in those Teen Titans issues where it would just flow out into her, you know, kind of thrust from her flight. Like, yeah, you can't say enough good things about his talent. And then, like I said, even beyond that, just what an incredibly stand-up guy. So yeah, hope we'll be doing a spotlight. Rocky and I will probably do the spotlight together, talking about Perez, and hopefully, like I said, we'll have him on. Because yeah, the guy's a legend. So anyway, like I said, be sure to pay attention. Be sure you're following us on social media. 12 days of the Comic Source coming up. Talk about plenty of Spawn, have plenty of interviews, some giveaways and whatnot. And 'tis the season to be freezing spotlight. Just tons of fun stuff we do leading up to Christmas. I know a lot of you guys are out of school, you're off work, you need more content, and we're here to give it to you. So don't forget, if you're checking us out on YouTube, be sure not to miss out on any of the other Comic Source episodes. Go to your favorite podcasting platform or podcasting app and do a search for the Comic Source and give us a subscription. Conversely, if you're checking us out on audio only, be sure you head over to YouTube, do a search for Rocky's channel. It's Comic Space Boom ! Like this video, ring that notification bell so you know when he puts out content, and be sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. And as always, we want to wish you happy holidays this time of year. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. I'm not sure what the Kwanzaa term is. Crazy Kwanzaa, have a crazy Kwanzaa. I don't know. Whatever you celebrate, I hope it's a joyous time, and wishing everybody a prosperous new year. There you go. Look at that. Rocky's got the happy holidays ready to go. So we really appreciate the support, especially this time of year, spending time with friends and family, and it's coming up on the year in review, and just thinking back on the year and all the support and the great download numbers, and you guys tuning in to the DC Spotlights every week. We really, really appreciate it. We do. So anything else you want to add, Rocky, as we finish up here?
No, just I hope everyone gets. Don't forget to get your Christmas shopping done. Happy shopping, and try to get out and support. Try to get out to a theater and support the box office. I know I want to do that. And enough with all this streaming stuff. We got to get back and watch some movies for the Christmas season.
Yeah, I'm driving all the way from Phoenix to Vegas to see the new Matrix movie on the day it comes out, so I can see it with my son. Like we're gonna see it like together.
Oh, that's
And then
awesome.
yeah, so I'm driving all the way there just to watch the movie, and then him and I are gonna turn around and drive back together for Christmas. So anyway, everybody, that's gonna do it for this episode. We really appreciate the support as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.